What's up, friends? Welcome back to another episode of I'll Call You Right Back podcast. My name is Chad Medved, and this is my show. Welcome back. Been quite some time since we've spoke. Last episode I put out was before Christmas time. Been a little bit of time in between. That was intended, but some things happened in life, and I had to extend my little hiatus, and we're just rolling with the punches now. Like I said, I think it was December 17th, maybe December 18th, December 19th, one of them days. I put out episode 267 with VHS script, and it was a great episode, fantastic episode. And in that episode, I mentioned that I was going to take off, a couple weeks to try to get my ducks in a row, since obviously we have some video going right now. First, I guess, official video intro. So, I'm glad that you guys are here. But, I wanted to take a couple weeks off to try to schedule some interviews, try to get some things taken care of so I could get ahead of the game with this video, because it is a beast. Me doing all this video myself is a lot. Takes a lot to, complete this. And, I was ripping and tearing, on these episodes. And I intended to take, the last few weeks of the year off to try to get things sorted. But then, life kind of got in the way. Some things happened in my life that made me kind of extend that little it wasn't a vacation, I'll tell you that. But, unfortunately, the end of last year kind of put me through a test mentally. Me and my wife and, my family, I dealt with, my grandmother passed away December 28th. And then 2 days later, sadly, my 3-year-old dog passed away. And, I'm sure, if you listen to this last episode with VHS script, I even talked about her then. I said, my dog has been dealing with some shit, and, we think it's some kennel cough, but oh my God, it wasn't. It was not kennel cough. My poor dog had cancer. And we couldn't do nothing about it. So, 2 days after my grandmother died, unexpectedly, taking my dog to the vet to try to, find a remedy for this little cough she had, and got the worst news I could have ever imagined. And I didn't get to come home with her that day. Me and my wife didn't get to come home with her that day. And it has been tough for us. It's been tough. And, I'm not on here to give no one a sob story, but, I've taken over a month off of this podcast. I've been doing this for 6 years, and that's the longest I've ever taken off of this. And, truly it's making me sick more than anyone else. I give myself so much anxiety about this podcast. Every week that I don't put an episode out, I feel so guilty, and I just feel shitty for not putting one out. But realistically, I know you guys are the best, and, everyone, is really understanding of the shit that's been going on the past couple weeks, and, the reason of my absence. And, I wanted to come on and kind of let you know that I'm not just slacking. You know what I mean? If anything, I was ripping for a second, but then this shit kind of took the wind out of my sails. And, to tell you the truth, that time that I set aside, that I intended to set aside to get ahead, I didn't use it to get ahead. I've been grieving my dog. Obviously been grieving my grandmother as well, but, it's so crazy to think that a 3-year-old dog, that had life, that's just like there one day, just gone. And that's been way tougher than I've ever could have imagined. And in, on top of this death, after I started getting my mind sorted out, I had some other interviews scheduled, but then, I had someone cancel on me last minute, which is crazy. And then, right after that, I had one more interview scheduled a couple days later, and I got food poisoning. The first time I puked since I was 14 years old, had to cancel that interview. My ceiling was leaking. The list could go on. I'm sure we all have a laundry list of bullshit that's been happening to us. It's been seeming like that a lot of people have been dealing with shit this year, and I'm tired of it already. Come on. 2024, come on, it's supposed to be our year, right? But, the end of last year really took us a couple steps back. So I just wanted to say I appreciate everyone's understanding, for me not being here and for all the kind things that you guys have said. I've had people reach out and ask me how I was doing. People don't even know. They heard me or they saw me post a picture of my dog on Instagram to say that she passed away and to say that was, the reason that I'm taking off a little time. And I had people that I don't even know reach out to me and say kind words and ask me how I'm doing. And man, it's all because of this podcast. And it's really incredible that is, that's what this has come to, 6 years. It's been a lot. And I just, first time I had to deal with some shit like this. So this podcast had to take a back seat for a little bit. No one's paying me. You know what I mean? You see this right here? You don't see no one else's brand name here, right? Technically, I don't have a boss. This is the boss right here. If anyone that's watching wants to work, your name could be up here. If you see some opportunities in me and you want to work with a person that's trying to put on for the city, let's talk. Your name could be right there every week. Your name could be a banner that pops over every week. Let's talk, baby. This podcast is, I'm trying to bring in some revenue for this podcast in 2024. Let's get it ripping. You know what I mean? This is going to be the year. We got some video now. I appreciate it. And we're kicking off 2024 with a hell of an episode. This week, I sit down with Montana Mitchell. Now, Montana Mitchell is, when people talk about yoga in Pittsburgh, her name is always in the conversation. Montana is a yogi instructor, a coach, a teacher, all kinds of stuff. But like I said, when people were talking about yoga in Pittsburgh, this woman is in the conversation. I've done my research. I've had multiple people talk my ear off about her, including my wife and, I'll call you right back, alumni Yoga Ralph. He was originally the guy who put me on to her. You could go back into the phone book and find his name and listen to his 2 previous episodes. But this is the guy that got me into yoga, that got me interested into yoga. Just a guy that changed his life one day with a fascinating story. We talk about him in this episode, and, I just want to, I definitely got to give him credit. He's the one that kind of opened my eyes to yoga and being more, I don't know, I guess like introspective about your life and wanting to do things, kind of like self-care. I don't know. I was trying to think about it, but Ralph is definitely the guy for the yoga, but he's the one who put me on to Montana. And we had some other mutual friends in the Christies down at Streets on Carson. I found out they knew her as well, reached out to them, said, what's she like? Is she the right one to have on here? And they had nothing but great things to say about her. If I'm a yoga person, I would say, I go once every couple weeks. I'm not some crazy yogi, but whenever I do go, I like to go to Yoga 6. That's one of the places that Montana teaches at. And I also, on the other hand, I go to Yoga Flow. Those are the 2 places really that I go and practice yoga. And it turns out Montana is an instructor and a teacher at both. And, not even just a regular teacher. Montana is one of the people that runs the yoga schooling. And it's pretty incredible to hear her story. And I reached out to her after I found out that she was like, the one. And I kind of wanted to hear about before all this yoga stuff happened? Like, how did she become a yoga person? And, I had an assumption. I assumed that she was going to be some, hippie type that's just, and I have to say, we say hippie in this episode a lot, and I think it's for lack of a better term. Whenever I say hippie, I would say like more spiritual type, smudging things, wearing parachute pants. Like, I don't know. I guess it's a gross way to, describe one group, but I don't know. I just imagined her to be like, someone that has crystals hanging from her. But in fact, I was surprised to hear that, in Montana's past, she was a pretty, devout and rigorous dancer. Like, that was her whole life growing up until, right out of college. This woman wanted to go be a professional dancer in New York and travel the world dancing. And I didn't know about that. And I thought that was a fascinating part of the conversation. So that's what we do. We sit down this week and we talk about how she went from being, this crazy, regimented, militant dancer her whole entire life to transitioning into this yoga godmother who was, put here to communicate how to teach yoga better. If that makes sense. And what I mean by that is, Montana obviously does a great job at teaching yoga classes at both of these schools, but what she even says herself is what she really enjoys is teaching the teachers so they could be better for the classes that she teaches. And, we talk about way more than that, obviously. So I'll let you go from here. I'll let you listen to the episode. And I just want to say, I appreciate everyone understanding for all the chaos that is, I guess it wasn't even chaotic for you guys. I was just absent. You know what I mean? I appreciate you understanding for that. I hope you enjoy this episode. Check out Montana's Instagram at Monty Fresh. You could check out her schedule on Yoga 6 and Yoga Flow's websites, catch one of her classes, and enjoy the episode. So without further ado, episode 268 of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with Montana Mitchell.
I gotta use the telephone.
Hello?
Telephone.
I'll call you right back. Call you right back.
Telephone.
I'll Call You Right Back podcast. Myself.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, the audio is cool. And I could manage that, but it's like, you don't really have enough content to share with it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I create all this stuff and I can't like clip out, minute long pieces
Right.
for people to listen to, that are, no one wants to listen. You have to have something visually to like,
Is this a coaster?
It's
Yes,
a coaster.
okay.
Yeah, you can toss them.
Sorry,
That's all right. They're decorative coasters.
I love them.
But it's like, I don't know. I can't watch, just an audio clip. So
Right.
like everyone's like, oh, you need to put video in there. And I'm like, how am I going to put video in there? It's like,
You're
this
doing
is-
the damn thing.
I'm trying now. But so you're a podcaster.
Yeah. Yes. Very little. Literally just started. I have no fucking clue what I'm doing.
That's all right. I love it. I love it. I'm excited to talk about this.
Yeah, me too.
Toss some headphones on and pull this mic up to you, like pull the bass up to you, and like I'm sure you know how to use it. Yeah.
You'd be surprised. I don't. There
Does
we
that
go.
work?
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing the podcast?
So we've been doing the podcast. God, I don't even. We've done 14 episodes and we've posted one a week. So 14 weeks.
That's incredible because like people were like, yeah, let's do a podcast. And you're like, all right, yeah, we'll start it. But then after it's like week in and week out, you have to like create something and put it out. And there's so much more shit that goes into it than like what people are talking about or what people think that goes into it. So it's like, you know, that's definitely respectful. 14, I think I read somewhere that the statistic was that like 74% or something of podcasts don't go past the 10th episode.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh, all right. Well, we're already 4 past that.
Yeah, so that's
let's
great.
go.
And who you do it with?
I do it with my friend May. She and I teach yoga together and facilitate teacher trainings together. And so luckily we have each other to like hold each other accountable, but also then we have each other that we have to like schedule recording things around.
Yeah.
And every episode has a guest, like your podcast as well, or most of them. So then we have like a third person that we, you know, have to schedule in. And eventually I'd like to get to a point. We were at a point toward the beginning where we would post or we would record like 2 or 3 and so quickly back to back that I'd just be able to like schedule them to be aired.
Yeah.
Now, since we've been through the holidays, it's back to like, all right, let's record on Wednesday and we're going to post on Friday. Let's go. But yeah, it doesn't feel, even though there's like expectation behind it now because we have the people that are listening, whoever they are. I don't feel like pressured by it. I feel really excited and lit up by it. It's like a whole new avenue of inspiration for me. So it's been cool.
Yeah, that's cool too. I mean, like so the way I came across you even is Yoga Ralph first and foremost.
Yes.
He told me about you in the
love
beginning. Before he started messing around with podcasts, he was like, you should get her on. This is years ago. And then Matt Christie from Streets.
Hell yeah.
That whole like kind of world, you just came across my Instagram randomly. And then I started doing yoga from Ralph.
Cool.
And then started going to Yoga 6 randomly just because it's closer to the house. And then my wife got into it and she was like, yo, there's this chick Montana. She's like, it's incredible.
I was just going to say, when your wife walked downstairs, I was like, I know her.
Yeah, she pops in. She's she says that she's been to a few of your classes, but your schedule is a little bit different to like try to get to your classes.
Yeah.
You usually do in the week?
So at Yoga Flow, which is where Ralph and I did our 200-hour teacher training together.
Yeah.
I teach Friday mornings in South Hills and then Thursday nights in Shadyside. And then at Yoga 6 South Hills, it's a national brand. So each studio is set up differently. There's like a lot more
creative freedom.
Actually, there's more. Well, we can get into that in a second. But at Yoga 6 South Hills, there's more like roles there's more opportunities for leadership roles. So there, I'm the lead teacher.
Yeah.
So I help to support the whole teaching team in being the best teacher that they can, giving them feedback, which every teacher at Yoga 6 South Hills is so amazing that oftentimes I'm just like, that was fucking great. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
I'm like, that was great. I'm pulling at straws here. But anyways, so all that to say, because I'm the lead teacher, I kind of fill in the gaps where other people, when schedules change and all that fun stuff, because generally yoga teachers do it as a, side gig on top of whatever they do full time. And luckily I am so grateful to be able to say I do this full time. So my schedule right now is only in the mornings, sometimes, and Monday through Friday. So like 6 a.m., 9, 7:30, 1, 10:30, and not really later than that. But that's always changing because
you fill in where you need to.
People ever evolve. Yeah, exactly.
So, before we even get into the whole yoga end of it all, I'm sure we're going to talk a good bit about that, but I'm kind of curious about where this all started from. Are you from Pittsburgh?
I'm from Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas.
Oh yeah.
When do you come up here, and for what reason do you come up here?
So I grew up in Dallas, born and raised, and then when I graduated high school, I came to Pittsburgh to go to Point Park.
Oh, okay.
I grew up dancing my whole life, so Point Park.
What type?
Ballet, all sorts of like classical genres. So ballet, modern, contemporary. I also grew up doing like jazz and hip hop and tap, but those things were never my jam. So I got a BFA in modern dance.
Yes.
So not totally ballet route, but definitely still like classical, just in the modern sense.
Now, let me ask you, kind of get in the weeds of this. You said contemporary dance, like for me, someone who doesn't know much about it, I think of like, ballet, like you would see on Broadway, like the Nutcracker, things like that. What other types of like avenues are there?
There's so many. And I will preface, I've been out of this world since 2016 now. So
was this a big part of your world?
This
like
was
as a kid?
my whole life. This was my identity. This was
wow.
Like
how old were you when you started?
I was 18 months old when my mom put me in my first dance class, still wearing a diaper.
Wow.
But I got serious. This always sounds silly when I say it, but I got serious about it when I was 9. I knew I was going when I was 9, but it is true. That's when I realized like, oh, I really love this. And I want to do this for the rest of my life. So it cultivated my entire life. I did it every day, day in and day out. Honestly, I danced 40 hours a week on top of like going to school because I was a kid from the time I was 9 until I graduated from high school.
Where does like the want of dancing come in? Is your parents, like, was your mother like into dance, or was it just
my mom
randomly?
put me in dance.
Yeah.
I think just because I was like a little kid running around, like, singing and dancing.
Yeah. Like my niece is in like gymnastics
exactly,
and stuff like that.
I feel like most little girls try it.
Yeah.
And this was before, because now it's like, for lack of a better term, trendier. And it's definitely more popular. That's what I should say. So it's more popular that little girls get really serious about competitive dance. But back then it wasn't as popular. And it was just, I don't know. Similar to what happened later on in life with yoga.
Yeah.
I just realized that I'm very big on doing things with purpose, for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard for me to like sit down and watch TV and I'm like, what is the point of this? And it's like to relax, to chill out. It's all good. So ever since I was little, it was just, I just had this push from my gut that just like kept me going. It was always, most things that I do in life are act now, think later. So it's hard to bring myself back there and to figure out or dissect why.
Yeah.
But it had nothing to do with my family. I mean, my grandma like kind of, taught dance here and there, but nothing serious.
As a kid, it's like, you don't really have like a grasp of what you're going to do with your life. So it's like, oh, I'm doing this in this moment. I like it enough to want to just, go full tilt, because I'm sure you're seeing other people, you got friends in that, so it's easy to like kind of gravitate towards that, especially whenever you don't know the other stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
Are you doing competitions, or is this just like...
So it started as competitions, and I did the competitive dance. I was in the competitive dance world until I was a junior in high school. When I started high school, I went to a performing arts high school in Dallas called Booker T. Washington. Shout out if anyone's listening from Dallas. And it was the coolest experience.
Is that like where you can just hone in on to the craft that you wanted to be?
So there's 4 clusters. So dance, visual, music, and dance, visual, music, and theater.
Okay.
And you audition for the school, but it's a public school. So it doesn't cost any money to go there. And you're accepted into one of the clusters, and like half your day is academics, and then half your day is focusing on whatever, cluster you're in. And then as you progress throughout your years in high school, then you can start to get a little bit more specific, especially like the theater and visual art majors, like the different specific routes that they would go. I can't even speak on them.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's just so many different avenues that you couldn't even begin to
That's so interesting to think about that, because like, I would say the majority of, people's high school experiences is you're just serving time, learning about shit that you don't care about. That's cool though. Like I often interview people now and they're like, oh yeah, I was in tech. I went to like, what's it called? Like vocational school for like cooking or something like that. And I don't know. I just never like really thought about that back then. I was just kind of,
being a kid
flowing along, I don't know. It's weird to think about that. But when you're in high school and you're like, doing, this is just your life there. Like, do you have anything else that you're doing besides this? Or is this just like 24/7? This
was like missing family funerals, missing like dances, missing vacations. This was all I did.
And like what is your goal as you being in high school, like pouring everything into that? Because like you said, you know, a lot of people were just thinking about being a kids. People were drinking in the woods, doing dumbass shit like that.
I was still doing that low key, but you know.
Well, it's like, how do you figure out that you're like, you know, I'm gonna be disciplined and focus myself in this? Like, what was your goal?
So I think the biggest thing, so what started was my personal drive super young. And then what I think continued to spark that was the people around me were so motivated and talented that just kind of sparked like almost like a competitive spirit, in a sense that like I wanted to, you know, uphold and up level the same way that they were. The people that I mean, okay, I was not planning on saying this, but this is a perfect example. I went to Young Arts. These are the kind of kids that I was hanging out with. I went to Young Arts, which is a pre-professional program for young artists. And it's based, I'm sure it's changed now with time, but how it used to run. So I was a Young Arts finalist in 2013, and you'd get to go to Miami for a week with all these different pre-professional artists and like have this week of classes and workshops and performances. And there I got to meet Timothée Chalamet before he was who he is.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's
I
crazy.
may or may not have kissed Timothée Chalamet. So
no shit.
Like I said, was not planning on that, but that's a
Are
great
you fucking kidding me?
I swear to God.
Wow.
And now I say to my husband, I'm like, does this mean I'm halfway Eskimo sisters with Kylie Jenner? And he's like, can you shut up?
Wow. Timothée Chalamet.
So people like that. I mean, that's obviously like top tier, right? Like, but people with that sort of motivation and drive is who I was around. So it was just like, that was my only choice at some point.
You were gonna get cast away if you weren't like bringing it to the table.
You gotta pull. Yeah.
Holy shit! How are you standing next to Timothée Chalamet if you're not 100% in? Right?
I know. It's crazy.
Wow, incredible.
Shout out. Maybe he'll listen to this one day.
I hope he does. You know, if he's on here, I'd love to talk to him about his choices that he made for Willy Wonka.
I know.
Now, let me ask you this. So, like high school, and you were trying to like, you know, develop what you're going to be and develop what you're going to do. You know, how long is this high school? 4 years?
4 years, yeah.
I mean, what happens when whenever you're getting to the end of it, you know?
So luckily they put us in really good positions for most of what's the word I'm looking for? Recommend that most of us go to college programs afterward rather than going straight into the field, which is also really interesting because I feel like I lived in this time especially in the dance world where college was like coming into play for the first time. And I feel like now I'm not in it, so I could be wrong, but I have a sense that it's kind of like falling out again. But, so they give us really amazing resources to audition and apply for different schools across the country. And ultimately that's how I got a scholarship to Point Park. It was the biggest scholarship that I was offered. So my parents were like, hey, if you're going to go to school for dance, you kind of got to go where you don't have to pay any money because you're probably not going to make a lot. And if you go to NYU, which is where you want to go, and it's $60,000 a year and you're living a starving artist salary, like that's just not going to work. And at 18, I was like, no, I didn't want to go to Pittsburgh. But obviously
were you ever here before?
No, I came to visit Point Park, but I had never been to Pittsburgh.
Have you heard of Point Park?
I had heard of Point Park because they have a really good dance program.
Yeah.
So it was definitely like on my list of schools that I was interested in because the program was so rigorous. But I wanted to go to New York City so that I could be in the city where I ultimately thought I wanted to end up, so I could start immersing myself in the real world of dance and start auditioning and make myself known while I was in school, which was obviously a lot harder to do when you're not in New York. And that was my ultimate goal at some point, became to tour with a modern dance company, which it's so funny because 10 years ago, that was like, I put it on such a pedestal and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to travel the world and dance with a modern dance company and not make any money, but it's fine. I'll see the world, whatever.
What is a modern dance company? Like, give me an example. What's the most mainstream example?
Let me try to, like Alvin Ailey. Yeah, I know. That would probably be like the most mainstream. And that's the thing too. And there's this whole world and so many people have no idea about it. And that was like the only thing I knew. Like when I say it was my identity, it was truly when I decided to stop dancing, people that knew me were like,
what the hell's wrong with you? What's going on?
What do you mean? Yeah. Like you're good. What are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. But
Well, it's so fascinating to me because it's like I grew up in high school. I played football my entire life. I don't care about it at all. I just did it because it was something, I was a bigger dude and I had friends that played football. I don't watch the Steelers. I haven't watched the Super Bowl in over a decade. I just don't care about it. But now in my later years as an adult, I regret more than anything, like not doing like theater, not doing like other things that I actually really cared about. Whenever you're younger, I speak about me. I never put any thought, like serious thought into it. I was like, whatever. But now, like I'll go to like a performance. Like we just went to a small theater performance in Carnegie Theater. It was like The Haunting of Hill House. And it's like this small, like, 4-person cast. And it's like so small and like minimal, but it's like, I don't know. It's just like a whole different world. And it's so fascinating. I'm just fascinated by anyone who just is obsessed with what they love, whether it's Matt from Streets talking about how he became a chef, or this guy that you call if you have a rabid raccoon in your house. Shout out to Pittsburgh Wildlife Management. But like, I don't know, I become fascinated on how people, like, what their mindset was with a younger age like that, like 18, 19. So you said you wanted to go to New York. Obviously that's like, the only way I could equate this is if like if I wanted to be an actor, I would obviously want to go to LA because that's where all the shit is, right? So New York is the hub. I mean, when you don't go to New York and you come to Pittsburgh, to Point Park, you said before you didn't sound that excited about it at first because it was like, your back burner choice. What is your mindset as far as school and as far as like what you want to do to pursue after you go through school?
So that's a good question. Once I got to Point Park, I don't know like what came first, the chicken or the egg. I don't know if I went to Point Park already kind of subconsciously with one foot out of the dance door, or if Point Park had initiated that.
Yeah.
But at some point within school, I recognized like, oh, this doesn't fuel me the way that it used to. This feels like a job. Like this doesn't bring me joy. There are definitely moments of that. Like I have handful of times throughout school where I can think of like being in a class where I was just like, my energy was so high, or performing a really amazing piece with really amazing choreography that I got to perform with amazing people. But like that drive that I talked about when I was 9, that like guttural, like need to do it without asking questions was like starting to fade. And, so for a while I don't think I realized it, or I was scared to realize it, but I was trying to get myself to want to do all the things that I was supposed to do to become a professional dancer after graduation, i.e. go to New York as much as possible, do summer intensives, audition as much as possible, take as many classes, train, where at some point I realized, like, I don't actually want to do any of this. I'm just doing it because I feel like I'm supposed to, and because I don't know what else to do. And I never, ever, I was definitely a talented dancer. Don't get me wrong. And a lot of any talent, I believe, definitely has to come from like some sort of natural ability, but not to toot my own horn, but I really did work my ass off as a dancer. So there's plenty of people that I went to school with. My roommate, all 4 years, love her to death. Her name's Sasha. She was one of those people that like, just, it came so natural that she didn't really have to work very hard. And so I was able to compare myself with her, and both of us, even though she was kind of like, whatever, I'm doing it and I look perfect, but I'm not really trying. And I was like working my ass off. Both of us still, regardless of our differences in mindsets, were both kind of like fading out together, but didn't want to admit it.
Yeah.
So finally, honestly, it wasn't until I graduated in 2016. I was Point Park.
Is that 4 years there?
So it was supposed to be 4 years. And my second year, or end of first year, I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. I wasn't admitting that I didn't want to dance.
Why do you think that is? Do you think you just burnt yourself out on it?
Totally. I think that I wasn't I could have never prepared myself for the transition of pre-professional to collegiate.
Yeah.
And as professional as Booker T was, it was still for high school kids.
Yeah.
So it was still fun. It wasn't a job. I was making the choice to sacrifice other things for that.
Yeah.
Where then when I got to college, I was kind of like, wait, I want to I want to go to a pit game, and I want to tailgate, and I want to be able to, you know, for anyone that went to school in Pittsburgh, go to a basement party and drink out of this huge cooler of something that's red, and not have to I wanted to be able to go to St. Patrick's Day and not have to sit in rehearsal, look out the window and watch the parade from the Boulevard of the Allies. I just finally, for the first time, wanted to experience life
rather than
be a dancer.
Yeah, be a dancer. And you don't know, because it's so fascinating, because you said I just didn't know what to do. I was afraid to try to do something else, but it's you become so obsessed. I had a buddy growing up that was a wrestler, just an absolute freak wrestler, go to states, wearing rubber suits, chewing on paper to make weight, puking, all that stuff. And it's it was just his life, know, his whole brothers, his dad, everything. They had a wrestling mat in the basement. When you leave high school, it's what are you doing? He was kind of a fucking asshole in high school. He was known to be a dickhead, but after he was done with wrestling, he became this hippie type, skydiver, yeah, dude, just live life, live moment, and live the moment right now, Bodie from fucking Point Break, literally like that. And I think about this probably more than I should, but maybe he was a dickhead in high school because his whole life was just regimented every weekend.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get you get approval for that. You get praise for being this basically this
Workaholic.
machine.
Yeah.
And you get this validation, and you're this is all I'm doing. And you kind of get set on autopilot, but it's cool to hear that you have this realization. And I mean, I know it sucks probably, because you're oh, I put all this time into this. It's what the hell am I going to do? But then you just you wake up basically.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know. It makes me feel that you would probably hate what you were doing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And that makes me laugh really hard too, because in my own way, I feel very similar. There were so many people, I really was a bitch in high school but I was always myself, but I was so regimented and stressed and high strung that and then when I stopped dancing, everything was just oh. And then of course, transition to yoga, which is in its own way.
Are you doing yoga at all during this?
So I would do yoga as a supplement to my dance training in dance studios with dancers.
Yeah.
So I was presented yoga in a very specific way, but that's not
traditional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not how I'm doing yoga now. There was something else that I just thought of, but I forgot it. It'll come back to me, I'm sure. No, it's all good.
You were talking about being a bitch in high school because you were regimented.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going after that, but yeah. So I think we'll segue into my actual first yoga experience. The way that I experience or practice yoga now was my freshman year of college. So I had that with me throughout college too. So it was it was in alignment to deny that while I had kind of one foot out the dance door, I was also stepping into this other thing that just made me so much happier.
Yeah. And was it from that moment, the first class, you're this is it?
Kind of. I have had an amazing first yoga teacher. I call her my yoga godmother. Her name's Deborah Abrams. She is based in Dallas, north of Dallas, if anyone's getting super specific, in Frisco, McKinney area. And she is an angel in human form. We just had her on our podcast actually a few episodes ago. I think we did. Yeah, actually I know she was number 11 because I was you get number 11, girl. And she's
called the Yoga Chat?
It's called the Yoga Chat.
The Yoga Chat. Check it out.
Yeah. Also, not to get off track here, but when I had the idea to start that podcast, I Googled the yoga chat and nothing came up. And I was like, what?
That's
And
literally
then
why I picked my name.
Yeah.
I Googled it, nothing came up. I was like, I'm gonna just
what?
do it.
Yeah. And then I like immediately got on Instagram, typed it in, nothing. I was like, I don't need periods or
Meant to be.
underscore. And I was like, I'm making the Instagram right now. I don't even know if I'm going to do anything with it, but yeah, the yoga chat. So Deborah Abrams is just, I can't even really put into words how amazing she is, but something happened. So her daughter danced at my dance studio. She's 4 years younger than me. So I was home for the summer and I would give dance privates to little girls to, that was my summer job. So she approached me and was like, hey, would you be interested in doing like a barter system? I was going to take like yoga classes around the city, but still it was nothing. It was like a performance still. I was like performing like a dancer on my yoga mat. And she's like, do you want to do a barter? And you can teach Rowan dance privates and you can come to my house and I'll teach you yoga privates in my garage in the heat of a Texas summer. You can bring your friends, they can throw me $5. And we ended up practicing like every day for 2 hours. And in that garage, like something happened and I immediately, I don't know if it was after the first class, but definitely that summer, I said to Deborah, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like everything you're doing for me, I want to do for other people. I want to be you. I want to do what you're doing. And she was like, that's great, but you just started a dance, you're diving into your dance degree. And, this is a lot of energy and money. So like focus on one at a time, finish your dance degree, see where that takes you. And then if you ever, want to come back to this and supplement it, you can. And lo and behold, that's what
crazy.
happened.
Let me ask you this. So this is tangential, but usually I feel like there's almost, and granted, whenever I say this, I'm not like a crazy big yogi. I've done, probably 50 classes in my life. I feel like there's two different kinds. Yoga 6 is almost like, it reminds me of like please do not take as a negative, but like a cultish type of vibe where it's like, you're going to a class, you want that camaraderie with like other people, we're here together, we're doing this. And that's what I love about it personally. Like I love the set hot flow. I mean, it's a dope spot.
Look, your stuff.
I like it. I enjoy it. But like, I also, then there's the other flip coin where it's like yoga flow, where it's like, hippie-ish, crystals, like some sage,
Naga Champa. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Harem pants.
All that stuff. So what is your mindset whenever you start yoga? Like, are you like, is this yoga more like the yoga 6-ish type of yoga? Or is this like a lady that's like wearing like parachute pants and like is smudging the garage? Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get an idea. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great question. And I think it's somewhere in between. So
Okay.
She was teaching me the Ashtanga primary series, which is very physical. It's similar to the hot series that you were talking about in the sense that it's the same every single time. It's totally different though.
Okay.
A lot less space for freedom. It's more like, as a dancer, I freaking loved it because it was like, put your body in this crazy position and use your breath. And
well, that's why I ask you, because I feel like you would gravitate, and I'm just making, I just feel like you would gravitate towards like more of like a, rigorous type of thing rather than like, have your own movement, take your own pose. These are just suggestions.
Yeah.
I feel like you would rather want like, I want to do this.
Like militant.
Like, like almost militant type of stuff. But that's just, it's just what I'm gathering from how rigorous of a dancer you are.
And I think that it always changes and it'll continue changing. But in the beginning, definitely, I was like, tell me what to do. And I'm going to put my body in the most insane position because ultimately, for me at least, I was, like I said, performing on my mat. Like I wanted to, I wanted to make Deborah proud, which in retrospect is hilarious and like the opposite of what you're supposed to do on a yoga mat. But now, like I will take Shavasana like 15 minutes early or like, and it changes, some days I go in there and I want to kick my own ass and other days I'm like my knees down or like, I'm in a lunge and my knees down. I'm not going to lift it up or like, I'm going to put my knees down on the chaturanga, the like yoga push-up or just not even do the push-up, go straight to down dog. So over the years where I've distanced myself from that rigor of the dance world and that mentality, I've given myself so much freedom. And ultimately, honestly, for someone like me, giving myself space to do less is actually harder than going in there and forcing my body to do what it did yesterday or what it did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But I love too that you mentioned the differences of Yoga Flow and Yoga 6. And those are only 2 studios, right? There's so many. And there's so many in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, but those are the only ones that I mentioned because like those are the ones I go to.
And those are the
most.
ones I teach at, which is
random.
Yeah. It's actually
like
random.
I usually I have not been to your classes, but I've been to Yoga Flow to see Ralph numerous times. We just went on Christmas Eve, fantastic 90 minutes, and then we go to Yoga 6. Like we try to go once a week.
Yeah,
Antoinette goes a couple times a week.
Yeah, I love being able as a teacher to have both vibes.
Yeah.
And anytime someone asks me, it doesn't happen very often now, but when Yoga 6 first opened, people would be like, "What do you like better?" And I'm like, I don't know, like, what day is it? How am I feeling? Like, what do I need? What do I want? And I think what I've really learned since recognizing the differences of the modalities and the vibes and the communities is that like, there is so many types of yoga. And I believe wholeheartedly that there is a type of yoga out there for every single person. You just have to find the genre that you're looking for, and you have to find the teacher that you align with, that you vibe with.
Yeah, the teacher.
It's everything.
It's huge. The teacher is definitely huge. Now, you said, Deborah said that, finish your dance and then, concentrate on yoga at a later time if you want. So obviously you did go through, you finished your dance focus at Point Park, but then, where does it go from there? Like, how does it graduate to you doing 700 plus classes at Yoga 6?
That's crazy.
It's
that was
insane.
Fun. That felt like my birthday.
Yeah. I mean, like that's really crazy.
I was like, I wish I started, I wish I started counting how many classes I taught, like when I started teaching.
What year is this? Like, what year did you start school?
So I started school in 2013, and I graduated in 2016. I think I don't know if I think we got off, which is totally fine.
That's
but
all right.
I went to school for 3 years and 2 summers instead of 4 years. So at some point I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I talked to my advisor and I was like, my mom's making me graduate, but how can I get out of here early? And my advisor is amazing. His name's Garfield Lemonius. He actually taught at Booker T, my high school, and then taught at Point Park and is now the dean of the, oh God, I'm butchering it. The dean of the conservatory there. Wow. So yeah, he's awesome.
What a crazy name.
I know, Garfield Lemonius. You should hear his voice too. I hope that I'm right. This is only what I've heard through the grapevine, Garfield, but a combination of Canadian and Jamaican. And
oh my goodness.
The suavest voice you've ever heard.
That sounds great.
He's amazing. So, shout out to him.
2016 though is whenever you graduated Point Park though.
Yes.
Okay.
And I, in the beginning of the year, right before graduation, I met, as the story goes, my now husband. And that was kind of like my permission slip to finally admit, like, I don't want to go to New York and I don't want to dance. Like, I want to be here in Pittsburgh with this yinzer.
You found Maddie Mitch?
I found Maddie Mitch. Yeah, I did. And he is honestly like the reason that I'm still in Pittsburgh right now. So,
wow. Meant to be.
It was. The way we met was divine.
I met on Facebook. My wife DM'd me on Facebook.
Really?
Yeah, and that's, tale as old as time.
The rest is
Been
history.
together like 11 years now.
I love it. Congrats on that, by the way.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to have someone that like you don't, she's like my best friend. So it's like, it's fun to have someone to just like go through life.
To do life with. Yeah, totally.
Oh, it's crazy. We just, like I said, we just had to put our dog down. Like us to like deal with that together was like, still crazy. I mean, it's just crazy.
I'm sure it's so hard, but also like in a weird way, an opportunity
pulls
to like
you closer.
Get even closer. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. And that's why, like, I haven't recorded an episode in like, over a month. I've been fucked up because of all this.
Yeah.
2 days before that, my grandmother died. Just, it's been a crazy time. Then 2 nights ago, my ceiling's just leaking while she's in the bathtub. So I'm like, I feel like it's meant to be that I'm having like, her over for the first of the year. You'll be the first episode of the year.
Oh, cool.
It's like kind of like,
honored.
I don't know. It
Start
feels
with
like,
the yogi vibes.
Yeah, just like a fresh vibe. We went to yoga the day after we had to help our dog cross over, and like me and my wife were like, can we do this? Should we do this? And we went, and it really was such a big help. And that's why I was so persistent, like trying to hit you up to get you back on here.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just like, it's pretty incredible. So like after school, you go and you decide to go to yoga school.
So at that point I was like, I don't want to dance. I want to be with Matt. All my friends and family that knew me up until that point were like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Like my mom, who is one of my best friends, we're very close, was like, it was like the biggest fight we ever got in. She still won't admit that it happened, but it did. We like didn't speak for 3 days. She was like, you can't make a decision like this because of a boy. I was like, I know that it sounds crazy, but I'm doing it. So
your family wasn't up here at all?
No,
Okay.
No, my family's all still in Dallas.
Yeah. So you were just up here by yourself, and that was you, putting
my
some
roommate
roots down
Sasha,
here.
who I talked about, she left. She was like, well, I'm going to, no, actually she finished. So she did 4 years. So she had 1 more year in Pittsburgh. And then she was like, all right, I'm leaving Pittsburgh. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to New York. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to stay another year. But I had Matt as like my root that was like grounding me.
Yeah.
That gave me any purpose.
Yeah, it wasn't as scary to stay here, I'm sure.
And I saw a whole side of like at Point Park, I was literally downtown in Oakland. And when I got to meet Matt, he like really showed me the rest of Pittsburgh. And this is such an underrated place. I fucking love Pittsburgh so much. The people are amazing.
It's the best.
I say this and people laugh, but I love the weather because there's actually weather.
Everything.
Like even today with all the slush, I was driving to work and I was like, it's weather. I love the weather. I just love it. So yoga was always there. It was always something that I practiced, but I didn't know. I kept saying to myself and out loud, like, whatever I do, I want to sweat for a living. I want to be able to sweat. So, moving my body was like, the only thing that I knew, but I didn't want to dance anymore. So from 2016 to 2019, I was kind of just like in limbo. Like I was in the service industry. Maddie Mitch's family owns Mitchell's downtown on 3rd and Ross. He was supposed to be the 4th generation owner. And right when we met and I quit dance, he was transitioning out of that.
Wow.
So like
he does construction.
Yeah, now he has his own business. He's a contractor. Mitchell Builds.
I like his videos. I do my research. I like that. I was like, I was watching his videos of dust aeration and everything like that.
He's like Mitchell Builds 101. Here we go. So he just started that in June, which he's really excited about. I'm super proud of him. And he is truthfully, like, I know I'm biased, but I'm not. He is just, there's no one in the field like him. He's so meticulous and passionate and cares. And I feel like contractors get such a bad rap because they oftentimes deserve one.
Yeah.
But his work is just, it's immaculate. He's so talented. And he has a lot of pride. So he's going to show up when he says he is, unless he slept through his alarm because he was up till 3 a.m. working on the computer side of things. And he's going to give you an amazing product, even if it takes 6 months longer than you expected. Sorry I said that, Matt. I love you.
Sorry, it's worth it. Worth the wait.
So worth it. So
you were bopping around the industry.
yeah. And then in 2019,
What's it like having a regular job? Like going from school to like being this like crazy rigorous like dancer and like just focusing on all that to like, working.
It was horrible.
Did you hate it?
It was horrible.
I feel like you could either been like, oh, I fucking loved it,
I didn't hate the service industry because that still honestly felt like a performance.
Yeah.
And with the schedule was flexible. So I have to have a flexible schedule, but I did other things. So I actually worked at American Eagle Corporate for a second. The title sounds really cool. It's not. I was their tailgate stylist, which means it's not cool, which means I'd go up and hang. So it was the college apparel, and I'd hang a college apparel shirt on a hanger and like make it look nice, and then click a button that would take a picture for the website. So that was so not fun. The environment was cool. The people were cool.
Yeah.
The job itself, I was like, this ain't it. So I was also teaching dance. I was still kind of like afraid to let it go totally. So I was teaching dance.
Did you like being a teacher? Like,
No.
I mean, well, you're a teacher now, but like,
Yes.
as a dance teacher,
I think 2 things. One, I like teaching adults because they're making the choice and spending their money to be there versus kids are not necessarily always making the choice.
Is
Some
that
of them
what
are.
you were teaching? You were teaching kids?
I was teaching kids dance.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like it could be difficult.
Yeah, it was. And I like kids in doses, but like it was hard. It was really hard. And like, yeah, to like have to expect, I wanted these kids to have the same sort of like rigor and drive that I did when I was their age.
Yeah,
and
they're
they
just
were
kids.
just kids. And
Yeah.
I would be like, you guys
Like how old?
are driving me nuts. So I mean, I taught a few classes.
Driving me nuts.
I love them all. If you guys are listening, I love you all, but you're so annoying. They're like in college now, I'm sure. But I had younger kids that were like 2 and 3 who would literally poop in their pants in the middle of class. And I'd have to like just pick them up and walk them out to their mom and be like, deal with this.
Yeah.
And then the kids that I actually like worked with were probably, I don't know, 9 to 15.
So like enough to be able to like.
Yeah. Like when I was their age, I was like,
Yeah.
you know, this is it. And so I was trying to have the same expectations for them that I had for myself, and that's never going to work.
That's
obviously.
understandable. It's understandable. And yoga, I feel like, like you said, you work with adults. There's people that want to be there, people that want to devote their time for that
Right.
practice.
They're spending their hard-earned money to be there. They're like, that is a choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So where does how do you decide on which school to go to? How do you decide on
That's a great question.
how to jump into all that?
So like I said before, I'm big on act now, think later. So I went to a class. It was the end of 2018 at Yoga Flow. And I literally just Googled, I'd never been to Yoga Flow before. I used to take an Amazing Yoga. And I had taken it South Hills Power Yoga. And another job that I had, I worked for a dance competition. So from February to May, I would be gone every weekend, traveling across the country, putting on dance competitions for little kids.
Jeez.
That I actually enjoyed.
Yeah.
In a weird way. Like I hated to love it. But it immersed me back in the world that I love so much. But anyways, I looked at South Hills Power Yoga teacher training, and I decided not to do it because it conflicted with the dance competition that I was working for. So I literally Googled one day. I was just kind of like in one of those fed up mindsets where I was like, I feel like I haven't been taking care of myself. I'm sad. I feel fluffy. Like I need to work out. I need to do something. And I'm sick of going to the same yoga classes that I've been going to. Nothing against both studios are amazing.
How often are you going at that point in time right there?
Honestly, not a lot. No.
Okay.
Like a few times a month.
Okay.
Yeah, not a lot. So I looked up yoga studios near me, and Yoga Flow Aspinwall popped up. And I was actually at Mitchell's at the time. So I was downtown, and I was like, okay, great. There's a Sunday class I think it starts at 9 a.m. So I was like, I'm just going to go to that class and see what happens. I had no idea that I was going to Dominique Ponko's class, who is the owner of Yoga Flow and the lead facilitator for their 200-hour teacher training. And I was in there, and it was the first time since Deborah that I had taken a class where I was like, what's happening? I can't, what is going on? I was just like crying. And she used to be a massage therapist, so she gives the best hands-on adjustments. I was just like, what are you doing to me? This is mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all the things, all the levels. So I got on Facebook after class and found her, or Googled Yoga Flow, somehow realized she was the owner and was like, oh, no shit. It was so good.
Okay.
Of course. So I messaged her on Facebook and was like, I just have to reach out. That was something. I don't know who you are. I don't know how I found you, but I've been looking for a teacher training for some years, and you're the gal. Do you have a teacher training? And she's like, yep, this was in October. And she was like, yep, it starts in January. And I was like, where do I sign?
Wow.
And my best friend, Vicky McWilliams, I called her. Her and I went to school together, but we knew each other from growing up as well. And I called her. I was like, I just went to the most insane yoga class I've ever been to. It was a spiritual experience. I signed up for the teacher training. This is it. We'd talked about doing it together for some time. And I was like, you should do it with me. Before even going to Yoga Flow and taking a class there, she signed up for their teacher training. She was just like, I trust you. Here you go. Take my money. And it was the best decision. It was such a catapult. It was the 200-hour teacher training at Yoga Flow is an amazing baseline. It puts you in it gives you such a good foundation to actually be able to step in front of a room of human beings and say, inhale, lift your right leg to the sky. Because believe it or not, that is so hard at first. It is so hard to use your words without like in teaching dance, it's like, I'm going to teach you this section and then we're going to stop and we're going to chat about it and we're going to blah, 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 whatever. When you teach a yoga class, what makes a yoga class good, whether people know it or not, is that unbroken thread of experience where you start the class and then all of a sudden the class is over.
Yeah.
And there were definitely moments where you're like, my leg's sore, or like, holy shit, I'm sweating so much, or blah, blah, blah. But there's never this like jarring stop to it.
Yeah.
And creating that unbroken thread of experience is with your words in front of people is so hard. And I actually did a second 200-hour teacher training during quarantine, because what else was there to do? So it was virtual. I'm not going to say the name of it because I don't have anything good to say about it. But it really, I'm glad that I did it because one, it gave me purpose during that time. And two, it really helped me have so much even more gratitude for Dom and Michelle. Michelle is also co-facilitates with her their training, because I kept thinking to myself, like, if this were the first 200-hour that I was doing, I wouldn't know how to teach afterward.
Yeah.
And there's so many trainings out there, and there's a lot of good ones and there's a lot of not so good ones. And I'm just so grateful. It was just divine timing that I showed up to that class and was like, teach me everything you know. And Dom did. And I love her so much. And I haven't seen her in far too long. And Ralph was a part of that teacher training with me.
Ralph, I interviewed Ralph, and Ralph actually did his first test run on me in my living room.
Yes.
I think it was before we recorded an episode, but it was before his first class out in Irwin. That was my first hot yoga class. I took my buddy out there, and like Yoga Flow, I don't think that I've ever been to a studio that's been as hot as Yoga Flow.
Yeah,
which is great. Yeah, it's great in there. But yeah, it was a wild experience, and that was before my wife got into it. And you know, I went and I think Ralph was a great. You know, he's a great jumping off point because he's not your typical, you know, just, you know, woman that's wearing leggings that's running around with, you know, I don't know, whatever yoga jargon
adds
that you
diversity to the space for sure.
He's a fat dude, or he was a fat dude who bumps rap music.
He calls himself
puts the OG in yoga.
Yeah, he puts the OG in yoga. He calls himself a retired gangster.
He is, and
I don't want to quote that because I might be wrong, but I'm like 90% sure
that's right.
Yes.
That's exactly it. And
he's
like,
got that big tattoo on his belly that says Thug.
Chunk.
Yeah, damn it.
Chunk. Tupac got the Thug tattoo, but Ralph, Ralph and my brother went to high school together. That's how I knew him whenever long ago. And then I'm like, man, it's so weird to see this guy, you know, just start doing yoga randomly out of nowhere. And, you know, often yoga is not associated with like as a masculine type of thing. And to see him do it and like gravitate towards it and like really just like change his life from it and like talk about it, and the way he talked about it and the way that like, you know, he's just not afraid to do whatever he wants to do. And he's a great way for, you know, he's gotten many people that I know into it just because he's more appealing to
relatable.
More relatable. But yeah, I don't know. I could see how it would be difficult to formulate to be able to communicate with words, like you said, like we were talking about. But like as you go through this 200-hour of training, like what's your mindset from the beginning? Like, are you immediately just like, I'm 100% into this? Was there any like, you know, did I mess up? Why am I doing this? Or was it all just like off to the races?
I think it was off to the races. I had been like those 3 years of limbo. I was so sick of it. I was just like, I'm done not doing something that fuels me the way dance used to. So I was open. Like, I think what really helped is that I didn't have pressure. I didn't put pressure on myself. I went in there really open-minded. I knew that I wanted to teach, but it was like, again, the same feeling that I had when I was a kid dancing. It wasn't like me driving that. It was something
pulling
much more powerful than me. Yeah. Using me as a vessel through that practice and modality of yoga. And, the training was, the actual 200-hour training was just.
Do I remember him saying it was like 8 hours a day, basically?
Yeah. So the Yoga Flow training is 6 weeks, consecutive, the end of January to the beginning of February, through the end of February. And yeah, you're there Saturday and Sunday, like 8 hours a day.
Yeah. And
I'm like trying to put myself back in that space. It was so humbling. but it also gave me the space to really start being myself again. Because like I said, for better or for worse, like everything I do has to have purpose. And finally I was like, this has purpose. And then over time I realized that so earlier on in our conversation, you asked about like the different avenues you can take as a dancer. And I've realized over the past 10 years that like the path that I've taken, or I've finally given myself permission to admit this, is an avenue of dance. Like if it wasn't for dance, I wouldn't have been able to seamlessly transition to yoga the way that I did. And yoga gives me all the good things that I loved about dance, minus the things
Negative
that I
things that
didn't
you
love
dislike,
so much about
but so
dance.
much more that you do love about yoga.
Yes. And then the service aspect of being able to like dance. And this isn't to say every dancer's this way, but for me, I was dancing for myself to prove that I could, to prove something. And for yoga, it's like the opposite. Like when I'm practicing, of course it's for me, but when I'm teaching, it is for any person that shows up in the space. And it really does feel like service work. Like it feels like God's work. It's like, I am tickled to say that I get to spend arguably people's best hour of their day with them, facilitating that experience for them. And that I didn't have that feeling in dance. I didn't have that service element. And that's really, I think, like the biggest difference between the two is that I feel like I'm doing something for much bigger than myself.
Do you think that you would have enjoyed it as much as you did if you weren't a dancer for as long as you were?
That's a really good question. I don't even know, because I like can't imagine myself not being a dancer.
Well, the way that I think about this is like, you know, if I scroll through your Instagram, you could see you do all sorts of different like poses. You're very flexible. You could do all these things that people, you know, like if I'm doing tree pose and I, you know, put my limbs out or whatever, and I want to like, you know, make things a little bit more difficult for me, you know, I used to get frustrated at like falling over and like getting back up at, I don't know. I see you. It's like, it's almost like, you know, easier for you to like maybe do some of these positions in
Definitely.
the beginning where you're like, hell yeah, I got like a handle on this, where it gives you like more motivation to want to do more. You know what I mean? Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah.
Whereas if like, you know, Ralph just jumped into that class and he's like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
It has to be so much harder. Like I give so many kudos to people that show up to a yoga space and don't have that background and that like bodily awareness. That's
Yeah.
a huge one. Because stepping into a yoga studio, even with that knowledge, is scary. And stepping into it and being like, what do you mean the inside of my right leg? Like, where is that? Oh shit, it's right here.
Yeah.
So yeah, like there is no denying that my dance background made transitioning into the yoga world like so much easier. And I should say too, this, you know, might go without saying, but what we're talking about is one element of yoga, right? Asana, the actual postures, the
Yeah.
physical practice. So while that came easier, other elements of yoga came a lot harder. Kind of going back to what I was talking about before, where like I would go into a class in a performative state and force myself and my body to do things that it didn't necessarily want to do or need to do, just to look a certain way or make someone proud or make someone be like, oh wow, look at that girl. And that's like, yeah, sure, you're moving through the elements of asana, but like, are you practicing
Your breathing.
other, like that
things
was,
like that.
oh my
It was
gosh,
difficult for me the first time
that
I
was
did it.
so hard. For years, it was hard for me.
I'm sure. I can't even imagine. I mean, it's interesting because like as I'll watch like a yoga instructor like do their flow and like go through everything and how they could talk while it's going on, and I'm like literally like if I'm in half pigeon or something like that, or pigeon, and like you know, it's almost like I got to concentrate on like not, you know, it feels like not dying almost.
Yeah.
But, the breathing aspect of it all, even whenever I would go into like a sensory deprivation tank or anything like that, just the idea of like, you know, regimented breathing is such like a weird concept if you don't think about it in the beginning.
Yeah. It's a challenge.
Is that like, like how was the learning broken down? Like you just said, what did you say the positions were called? What was the word?
Asana.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is like, how else is it broken down to? So obviously there's the positions in school, like you're learning all those, you're learning all these different ones. What are the other things that are the foundations?
I'm going to talk about some of them, and anyone that's a yoga instructor that's listening, you're going to be like, Montana, what? But I don't know the 8 limbs by heart. So I'm going to preface by saying that. But when I think back to like being in that performative state as a dancer in the yoga space, like there is something, one of the limbs is called, let's talk about the yamas and the niyamas, which are one of the limbs of yoga. So the yamas are ways of living, and the niyamas are like constraints. So the niyamas can be compared to like the 10 commandments from Christianity, essentially. So one of the yamas is, and I'm pretty sure it's the first one, and now you can see why maybe I don't have this memorized, because there's like so many subcategories of all this stuff, even though I facilitate 200 and 300 hour training. So oops. So one of the first yama is ahimsa, which means nonviolence, and practicing nonviolence to all beings around you and to yourself. If I'm in a yoga space and on a yoga mat and I'm forcing myself to do something to the point where it hurts, then I'm no longer practicing ahimsa, right? Another yama would be saucha, which is contentment, right? The ability to be content no matter what's happening in the surroundings, in your surroundings. So if I'm, again, forcing myself into different postures and shapes that doesn't feel good to me, then I'm no longer practicing saucha. Another yama would be brahmacharya. So brahmacharya can also be like, in the classical sense, thought of like restraining from, and see, now I'm mixing yamas and niyamas, but anyways, these are the ones that are coming to mind, can be restraining from like being abstinent. So restraining from sex, but in the tantric, more like new age way of looking at it, it's more like energy management. So brahmacharya, like if I am exerting myself to my absolute limit, every single pose, every single class, then I'm not managing my energy in a way. So now I'm no longer practicing brahmacharya.
Okay. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Just a balance of everything.
Exactly. And, I mean, I wish that I could pretend that I know all of them, but
no, that's all right. I mean, so you go through this schooling, and like, after you're done with your 200 hours, you then have to do a certain number of hours of teaching, right?
So once you get your 200 hour, you actually aren't required to do.
Or the 200 hours could be. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No,
I'm trying to
good.
remember how he explained it to me.
So I think if I'm understanding your question, so you have those like 8 hours a day, Saturday, Sunday for those 6 weekends. And then there's contract hours. So you're required to take and observe a certain amount of classes. Then that equals to 200 hours.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
And then after that, after you do your 200 hour, you're never required to teach. So oftentimes people will go into it just to dive deeper into their own personal practice and to learn learn more about like the philosophy and history behind the yogic practice, which is ancient. And sometimes people will go in being like, I want to teach. I'm 100% going to teach. And then they realize how hard it is to say, inhale, lift your right leg to the sky. And they're like, screw that. I'm going to do this for my personal practice. Whereas other people will come in and be like, I am never teaching a class. No way. And then they dive into the teacher training and they're like, wait.
The one instructor we had said that. She said that she didn't plan on ever teaching, and then she started teaching.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this. So yoga flow obviously is one way. We spoke about this earlier. There's like, for lack of a better term, a hippie-ish vibe at
totally.
Yoga Flow. And then you go to Yoga 6. How does Yoga 6 come into play? And if this is like far from whenever you're done with school, it's like, how did you manage to move beyond Yoga Flow's school into being a teacher that is, I mean, I see all the positive things that people say about you.
Oh, well, thank you. It means, honestly, I have all the positive things to say right back, because it's like, if it weren't for the people coming to class, like I wouldn't be able to do what I love. So I'm so grateful that people keep showing up. But I kind of like what you asked before, like I hit the ground running and realized during that 200-hour training that this is not only what I wanted to do, but what I was supposed to do. So another fancy yoga word, dharma, which is like your life purpose. I was like, I found it and I'm continuing to find it. So, it's so funny because when I was in it, it felt like so long. But when I tell the story, it's like, oh, it all happened in
blink.
2019. And it actually wasn't long at all. I graduated in June of 2019. And then in the fall of 2019, one of the Yoga 6 owners ended up coming to a class of mine at Yoga Flow. And afterward, we chatted. And it's a husband and wife who own Yoga 6.
Is that like a national chain?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a national brand in there. I just found out there's officially 200 Yoga 6s across the country.
Wow.
I know.
That's pretty incredible.
And there's another one opening in Cranberry in this coming summer. So that's exciting.
Oh, wow.
Different ownership. We're super excited. So that's cool. And then there'll be more in the future.
So the owners of Yoga 6 are just the one from South Hills. It's a franchise, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So the owners the owners in Cranberry will be different. I don't know their names, but yeah, I'm sure they'll be amazing, just like ours. So he came to my class, the husband came to my class, and afterward we were just chatting. And then he's like, my wife and I are opening up a yoga studio. Have you ever heard of Yoga 6? And I was like, no, never heard of it. And he's like, okay, cool. Well, if you're ever interested in applying to be a teacher there, here's my card. And I said to him, I was like, I would love to, but like, I don't know if I'm allowed. Like, I don't know. I only teach here. So like, I don't know what I'm allowed to do.
Yeah,
like, is there, I never signed any sort of.
It's like the greasers and the socias from the outsiders. It's like, are you like, because I'm curious because I know you are a fixture at Yoga Flow and a fixture at Yoga 6, but like, I didn't know if there's bad blood in between places or it's just,
and I think it's
rising
funny,
tides.
like, I want to be careful with what I say because I can only speak from my own experience, and my own experience has really only been as an observer. I've never been in an actual situation where someone has made me feel like I can't do something or I'm not allowed to teach somewhere or teach someone. But something that I've recognized, at least in Pittsburgh, because that's the only yoga world that I have been immersed in truly, is that like, and I feel like it's getting better, but when I did my first training, it was kind of like these little secluded bubbles. And each studio was like really just like its own thing. And to an extent, I understand that, but also I don't, because just like I said earlier, like there's a type of yoga for everyone. So if someone comes to Yoga Flow and they're like, well, actually I'll speak more on Yoga 6 because Yoga 6 is so unique and unlike your regular yoga studio that you'd walk into. So if someone comes to Yoga 6 and afterward they're like, I liked your teaching, but the lights and the music, like it was just not my vibe, not what I'm looking for. Like my first instinct is going to be like, okay, well, what are you looking for? And if they, give me examples of like a more hippie vibe, then anyone at Yoga 6 would be like, okay, cool. Oh, you're looking for no music. Try South Hills Power Yoga. It's down the street. So that's where like I, at least as an individual personally, I'm like, if what I am offering isn't vibing with someone, like I know that it's scary, but I hope that I could make them feel comfortable enough to come up to me and be like, hey, I want to do yoga, but this was too hot and I didn't like the way that you cued. I'm looking for something cooler, something slower, and I want the instructor to talk like minimally. Then I'm going to be like, okay, let's figure out where you can go. So I don't really know if there's been any changes to it, but I feel like in my own way there has, because I have such a home at both places and they're so different and they're completely different communities. And when I first applied, so I ended up applying for the lead teacher role and
at Yoga 6.
Yeah. And this was at the end of 2019. So we didn't know it was about to happen the next few months, but I went home and I'm trying to remember the timeline. I think actually, so then 2020 happened and the owners reached out to me and I hadn't received, like they haven't given me the job or anything, but they reached out to me and they were like, hey, we just want to let you know that, obviously things are on pause now. So we'll, reach out if and when the time comes. And I just kept trying to say yes to any other opportunities. So I was teaching at Mecca, which is a CrossFit gym in the South Hills. And I met an amazing mentor there. His name's David May. I love him so much. I still use him as a mentor. He's a coach and then also a yoga teacher. And I was able to like stay in contact with him. Mecca actually really helped me stay like, motivated at home to like practice and teach virtually and put on my own classes for no pay and just for the mere sake of wanting to offer this to people, whoever was interested, whether it was one person that showed up or I don't think I ever had more than 10, but whatever. So 2021 is when I think they officially offered me the position as a lead teacher. And I called Dominique. I was actually home in Texas for Christmas. And I called Dominique and I was like, hey, I have this opportunity. I kind of feel weird about it. I'm not sure why, but I feel like I need to call you and, like just let you know that this is something I'm considering and ask, if I'm allowed to teach at multiple places. And she, long story short, was like, let me sit on this. Let me just take this in and I'll reach out to you in a few days. And I was like, okay, sounds good. And that night at like something ridiculous at like 4 a.m. or something, I woke up the next morning and I had a text from her and she was like, I can't sleep. She said something along the lines of like, spread your wings. I'm never going to hold you back. And I was like, cool.
Fuck yeah. That's awesome.
I was like, thanks. So I don't know what her policy was before. But I know now her policy is that teachers can teach at multiple studios, which is, I think, really important. One, because how can you make a career out of this if you're only allowed to teach at one studio that pays you a flat rate for one class that isn't a lot because you don't make a lot as a yoga teacher.
Yeah.
And then you're not allowed to expand your horizons. And two, like exactly what she said, spread your wings. And this goes for any yoga teacher. Like, why would you want to, unless you feel called to, but like, if you feel empowered to spread your wings and like shine your light other places and like make a bigger impact on a grander scale, like do it. Right.
Well, it's weird. It's weird because like you said, I could see why there would be like that sort of like, idea that you want to keep to your own, almost like where you're taught and everything. But also like, I feel like as a customer of this and as a person who just goes to different classes, I want different vibes. I want to go to Yoga Flow and I want to smell the mint and the eucalyptus. And I want like, Ralph had this place hot boxed with, he was smudging everything on Christmas
and your
Eve.
eyes are like,
it was so crazy. But then like, I also want Yoga 6 where it's like, I know what I'm getting. I'm going in there,
Totally.
I'm doing a little bit of work and I'm getting it in there. And I like that. But I also feel like as a, just my point of view, but for you as a teacher, why wouldn't it be a benefit for you to go to all these different places? It's just adding different tools to your toolbox.
Yeah.
Like if you find one good thing from one place that you go to and you incorporate that into what you're doing, because obviously like, you being a teacher, it's really reflective of yourself and how everyone has the book of the curriculum. Curriculum.
When you,
curriculum.
There you go.
Yeah, it tripped me
I
up.
was like,
but it's
oh no, I'm gonna have to
It's like how you communicate it towards the class, and I feel like that any experience is going to be a benefit, right?
Yeah, totally. And that's such a good point. And I think it's 50-50, at least with my students. Like half of my students are like, I like this one spot and I'm going to stick to it. Great. And then there's the other half that's like, I see them at whatever studio I'm at.
Yeah.
And not just taking my classes, like taking any teacher. Yeah. It's not like they're following me to studios. They're literally just going to different studios.
Well, what's your mentality in your in your everyday life as far as how you, are you more of like the hippie-ish type of vibe or,
No.
You're not like that?
I don't think so.
Okay, that's fine. I mean,
and it's funny too because
you don't smudge your house, you don't have crystals and stuff like that.
No, I definitely have crystals and I occasionally smudge my house. Yes, absolutely. But like my mentality is like, I feel like I'm too much, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way to hippies at all, you know, as we're using that term.
And whenever I say this, you know,
Yeah.
for anyone that's listening, it's for a
Exactly.
lack of a better term. Please do not
Yeah.
come at us for that.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah, totally.
spiritual. Let's switch it to spiritual.
Well, so yeah, I mean,
but that's not even right, because you can go to Yoga 6 and you can be spiritual there.
Exactly. Like when I think hippie, I think like more like go with the flow, chill, like, you know,
these are
let
just
life happen to me.
suggestions, like,
yeah.
you know.
Where like I am too much of like a high performer
Okay.
to whatever that is.
Yeah.
Yoga, like I consider myself an athlete still. So it's like I've way too much energy to consider myself a hippie. Spiritual, very, very much so spiritual. And that's like where did
that come after all this?
That's such a good question. No, actually. So I was raised Catholic and realized from a very early age, like, this just doesn't align with me. And I was so young, and at that point was learning that like, if it didn't align with me, then I was going to hell. So I was like, there's something wrong with me. And I obviously wasn't telling anyone this because I was terrified.
Yeah.
And then through high school, I, you know, was so busy with dance that I was able to kind of like pull out of the church a little bit. My grandparents took me every single Sunday. And then like during the week, you know, when things were going on, from the time I was a baby until I was in high school. And in high school, actually received this book from one of my teachers. His name's Mr. Richards, R.E.P. And it's called The Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukov. It's still, like, to this day, my Bible. And I opened up that book and started reading it. And that's really where, and I was probably 15 or 16. And that's where I finally was like, feeling like, oh, there are other ways to connect to your God or the universe or higher
rather
power
than organized religion.
Right. Rather than Catholicism. And I'm not doing anything wrong. And that's not to say that anyone that's Catholic is doing anything wrong.
It's not.
Like, it's all, I believe that everyone that has a relationship with the divine we're all on our own journey to the same destination.
100%.
So that I think yoga, I think that was another reason why I was able to connect with yoga so much, because it gave me a means to move my body and feel like it was a spiritual practice.
Yeah.
And like church.
Yeah.
My Thursday night class at Yoga Flow, my close friends, they're like, that's your church. Even my husband, he's like, have fun at church. And anytime we're like where someone doesn't know, they're probably like, what? She goes to church? And I'm like, yep, at Yoga Flow. See ya. So yeah, the spirituality started before the yoga, for sure.
And you know, like, are you someone that like does meditation? Like, are you someone that could do that? Like,
so I think that's such a good question. And it's like, I feel like when you're asking, your idea of meditation is like, right, sitting like, and like quiet mind.
Well, I feel like originally, you know, that's what I would say a lot of people that are listening to this might visualize.
And that is meditation. Like,
yeah,
absolutely. And I do that occasionally, but I really like to meditate in, like, the number one place that I meditate is the grocery store. Like, it is so meditative to me. If I go in,
tell us how you do that.
I know, right? Luckily, I have such a weird schedule that I never normally go on the weekends, but I just went to Trader Joe's on Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'd been sick for like 8 days. So I was just happy to be out of my house. And there was full of people, and there was traffic, and it was snowy, and nobody was really happy. And I still like could not be happier to be there. I was just like looking around. Good. I looked like this girl. I was like, and everyone's probably like, what is she on?
Yeah, your lobotomy.
What did she eat?
Well, that makes sense though. I mean, like, I asked that just because, you know, I feel like, you know, doing yoga school or yoga school.
Yeah.
I feel like that would, you know, even me going to classes makes me kind of dive a little deeper into that. More like whenever you're in Shavasana, it's like you don't often have like, you know, 10 minutes to just sit there. Me and my wife will go into the sauna, and we'll usually sit in there for like 40 minutes. And like but we don't usually ever have any meditative type of thing in there. It's usually just like us talking about business shit.
Yeah.
It's like talking about what we got to do in our life.
And that's like meditative in a sense.
Yeah. And like, I feel like that's definitely our way to do it. But like, there's something different about just being able to have the discipline to be able to quiet your mind.
Yeah.
Have you ever did a float tank?
I have.
So
Yes.
the first time I did a float tank,
trippy.
I was like almost overwhelmed because of how much, I had like sensory overload because like how much shit was flying through my head. I felt like that I didn't really get anything out of it. So the second and third time I did it, I felt like I was more able to do it because like, you're kind of used to it a little bit more. You know how to like, you're more comfortable in that like weird type of environment where you're just like, everything is pitch black. You just have your thoughts, and where it was just kind of like a garbage dump of thoughts. The first time, by the third time, it was almost like me organizing like my dirty room.
Yeah.
Like if I had shit on the floor, it was like everything, one problem, I would grab it, put it away where it needed to be.
That's a great analogy.
Kind of like sort it out. I appreciate that. But I don't know. I just felt like, yoga school would kind of make you gravitate towards that a little bit more.
So 2 things. One, do you recognize similarities with your first time in the float tank versus or compared to your first yoga class, where like a few classes down, you're able to get like more of the benefits?
Well, yeah, because you're so unsure of what's happening, and it's such like a, it's unexplored territory. So it's like you're almost like focusing so much on what's going to happen next, and like you can't be present in that moment. You're so much thinking of the future, you can't be present.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was like that in the float tank because I just kept like, I couldn't like calm my mind. And that's like my idea whenever I think about meditation. Like if I'm in Shavasana, it's like, I would say 6 out of 10 times I can't calm myself down.
Yeah.
But, some days I'll be able to like slip into it a little bit more where it's almost like, you're almost falling asleep, but you're not, and you're still aware. But I don't know. It's interesting. I've always just been more fascinated with people that could like meditate a little bit more.
Yeah. For me, what comes to mind is like, kind of going back to what you were talking about with tools in the toolbox, and knowing that there are these tools that you can use, but really asking yourself, like, what is your main goal? Like, what's your intention behind meditating? So like, is your intention to calm your mind? Is your intention to sit still? Like whatever your intention is. And if sitting there and meditating gets you to that goal, great.
That's a good point.
But if sitting there and meditating, you're doing it because you feel like you should, but you're not reaching the goal or like touching your intention, then what's the point? What's the point?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like you have to set the intention to be able to know what you're even, focusing
And then
on.
it's like, all right, well, if I want to calm my mind, like I can do that in a plethora of ways. I can sit down, and maybe that means I sit down and focus on meditating, or maybe I sit down and start meditating, try to meditate, and my mind starts racing more. So it's like, am I going to sit there and be like, discipline yourself, or am I going to pull from my toolbox and try something else? What if I do some breath work? What if all I need to do is like distract myself? I think that that's something too that we forget to give ourselves permission to do, is like, if I'm thinking about something full tilt and I don't want to think about it anymore, maybe I need to sit with it and like really embrace it. Or maybe I need to just like turn on Friends and like put it in the back seat for a second.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think really getting intentional about what it is that you want to achieve, and then whatever tool helps you get there.
That's good. How do you prepare for, your classes? Because obviously like Yoga Flow, you have more creative freedom to do what you want. Whereas like Yoga 6, we said, some of the classes are just a set flow. So it's like, how do you go into like, preparing? Because I often know, like some yoga instructors will, offer a, what's the right word? I want to say a quote, but it's not just a quote.
Yeah.
But
like an intention.
Yeah. An intention, a thoughtful thing at the end. And
at the end. Yeah, definitely. Like a quote.
Well, or throughout, wherever. But it's like, like how do you prepare for that?
So first, before I talk about preparation, I was just talking to a friend of mine who is a teacher at Yoga Flow, and she is doing the Yoga 6 300-hour teacher training. So she doesn't know the Yoga 6 methodology, but she's doing the training, and it just started last week. And so she was kind of feeling overwhelmed, and she was like, essentially what you just said. Like, there's so much freedom at Yoga Flow and the other studio that she teaches at, and there's not any freedom within this Yoga 6 methodology. So like, did I make the wrong decision? Blah, 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 whatever. And what I explained to her, which I've learned over the years, is because in the beginning, definitely, I was like, oh, at Yoga Flow, I have, and I should preface saying that one isn't better or worse, good or bad. They're just different.
Apples and oranges.
Exactly. Not even comparable. So at the beginning, I was like, oh, I love that at Yoga Flow, I have all this freedom to do whatever the hell I want. I could be in there and we could be kumbayaing in a circle and Dom wouldn't give a shit. She'd be like, great. If it makes you happy, do it.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And I was like, oh, there's so much rigidity. Like this Yoga 6 thing is so rigid and I don't have space to be myself. And I can't, I'm trying so hard to like fit into this perfect little like blueprint and bubble of what I'm supposed to be there. But with time, I actually learned, I was humbled to learn that, and this is what I explained to my friend today. Like, if you think of like, what is freedom without a boundary, right? So if you think of like water without a boundary, it's just a puddle. But when you give it boundaries, and I have to give this analogy credit to David May, this is not mine. Once you give it boundaries, then it becomes a river, right? And rivers flow and they don't stop flowing to the point where they will crack rock and earth to continue flowing. And within those boundaries, you're able to, at least in a yoga teacher sense, you're able to have the space to actually look at what you're doing, recognize what you're really good at, highlight what you excel at, and then also shed light on where there's room for improvement. Whereas if you're just doing whatever the hell you want, how are you ever going to evaluate where you're at and how you're going to get better? Like, there's no...
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so it gets me so excited to come up with that realization or have that realization, because I'm like, oh, what I thought was limiting is actually giving me the space for more creative freedom because there's boundaries around it.
Yeah.
So all
that's
that
a really
to say,
great analogy. It
yeah.
is.
And that's like the river analogy, like I said, is from David May. And what is boundary what is freedom without a boundary is from one of my other mentors, Emily Porter Rand. Love her. She's a yoga teacher. She's a senior master trainer at Yoga 6. So like, I've taken their analogies and I'm like, this is it. This is how I explain the importance and the value of having structure behind this methodology of teaching. And they're both just ways. They're not, neither of them are the way. They're both, this is a way and this is a way.
Yeah.
And depending on the class and who shows up and how I feel, whether it's like the moment, the day, or the season of my teaching, now I have this toolbox with a plethora of tools that I can choose from. I can show up and just like blindly. So this here's kind of my process. Very rarely do I do this, but like, if I'm just exhausted or I haven't had time to like sit down and plan, I can blindly show up and create a class in the spur of the moment. And like, people are going to enjoy it because I sharpened that skill in the beginning via Yoga Flow, because nobody was telling me that I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
What I really love to do, and it is ever evolving. So most recently, I love to come up with, in the beginning, my classes were more focused on like a theme or having like some sort of, quote in the beginning, pepper it throughout, and then, tie a bow on it at the end. And I still definitely do that, but it's with a lot less preparation. It's more of just like, whatever I'm supposed to say today, like Montana, get out of the way and just be a vessel for that theme. And for the past few years, I've really been focusing on the asana in the sense of creating accessible flows that are challenging but still empowering for people to put themselves in positions that surprise themselves. And so I like to pick and a lot of teachers will do this, but I like to pick a peak pose, which is like the most complex posture of class. So it could be an intense, crazy posture, or it could literally be like triangle pose. Like, it's not the most craziest pose out there. It's just the most complex pose of that sequence. And then I work backwards. So one of my favorites, Bird of Paradise, which is like where you've got one leg up, you're standing about one leg up, your knees by your shoulder, and then your hands are bound behind you. And that's always been one of my favorite poses, but it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Like near to impossible if you haven't been practicing for decades or don't have a dance background. So I was like, all right, I am determined to come up with a sequence where like people can get in their own version of this pose that I love so much. So by working backwards, I think about like, okay, what is happening in this pose? So obviously balance. I'm standing on one leg, right? My top leg, there's a lot of external rotation, tons of quad engagement and hamstring stretch. Then there obviously also hip flexor mobility. Both of my shoulders are internally rotated and I have to bind where I can't see. So proprioception. So all of those things, like how can I build up to that from a simpler way? So all the way from the beginning of class, like we're going to start class in a position that's already going to start opening up the hip flexors. And then like, the thread the needle thing.
Yeah. Love
so
it.
I know
on the
it's so
shoulder,
good, right? Yes.
Yeah. Perfect.
So then like I'll thread through the needle, but instead of just staying there, it's like, okay, well, how can I mimic what's going to happen in a simple way? So if your right arm's down, lift your left arm to the sky, wrap it behind you.
Yeah.
That's literally the same posture, the same mechanics that you're going to do in Bird of Paradise. You're just this way, right? And then continuing to like build on all of those different elements so that once you get to that portion in practice, then you've built simple to complex in a macro way. So like the whole sequence, and then in a micro way. So once you finally get there, so if you're in like a warrior 2 to get started, not everyone, no matter how you well you warm up their body, are they going to be able to like hook their hands behind their leg, right? So it's like, okay, now in a micro sense, how can I give options from simple to complex? So your hand can be here, your hand can be in your inner thigh, it can be on your hamstring, or you can work your hands together. And regardless of where your hand's at, then you can stand up. And it's like, if your arms are here and one hand's behind my back and one's just hooking my leg for survival, that's still a variation of Bird of Paradise.
That's interesting how you put that together. And how that kind of gets processed through your mind for classes like that. I like that. That's very interesting. I'm sure that it's good for both because like, we talk about yoga flow and having like freedom and things like that. And that's like, like we said before, I like that because like, you never really know what you're going to get. You know, if the instructor is like, we're going to focus on hips today and, kind of focus on that. But I also like the Yoga 6 where it's just like, you know what you're getting and you can kind of do what you want from there. But I feel like that, you're getting reps. Yoga 6, you're getting a bunch of reps. So it's like you're being repetitive and like you're going through everything, but you're getting your creative juices flowing with yoga flow. I don't know. I see the benefit of both of it.
And honestly, like my classes at both studios are very similar. Like it's not like the biggest difference is that the yoga flow classes are 75 minutes. So I'll spend a lot of time in the beginning, like 15 to 20 minutes doing mindfulness and breath work. Whereas at yoga 6, I don't have the amount of time to do that. So the mindfulness in the beginning is like 2 minutes. So that's like the biggest difference. And that's where I actually feel like I have this space to like pepper in, at yoga 6, I'm like peppering in the spirituality, whether people know it or not. And at yoga flow, I can be more blatant about it because I have the time to do that.
That makes sense. How do you choose your playlist?
I knew you were going to ask that next for some reason.
It's a big deal.
It is. I just play the music that I like. And I make sure that the music evolves with the ebbs and flows of class. So like obviously the beginning is more mellow and then it like gradually increases in intensity and like energy. And then oftentimes like even if I'm not done with the sequence that I've created, but my playlist is starting to dive down, I'm like, all right, we're cooling down. Like if you're ever in a class with me and the playlist, the music is not representing the like physical asana, then I just know I've made a mistake, and that was an accident, and I didn't mean, and it's happened definitely.
Do you make a lot of mistakes in class? So you're pretty good.
God.
You're pretty good at like, just like,
Always.
I don't recognize like a lot of things, but I'll recognize if like we miss a movement or like, like vaulting, like, on like the warrior or something like that. I don't know. And it's very rare that I even like, notice that that's a thing.
Most of the time, like I don't necessarily, like, of course, like occasionally I'm going to forget poses and forget sides, but more so what happens for most yoga teachers, I would argue, is things that we notice that like no one else is, or if someone notices it, they're not going to remember it. Saying weird shit. And I've said such weird shit.
Or like the opposite, like opposite side or anything like that.
Yeah.
Well, now, do you play like actual music or well, I
Yes.
guess it's all music. Like, do you play like,
I play what I listen to.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I know there's some people it's like, lo-fi.
Yeah.
Which I like too, but it's always
I want to
interesting to
vibe.
hear.
I love I love to dance, but I do like, I love music.
I don't know who we just went to on the second, or it might have not been the second. It might have been an evening on the 6th, but it was, I don't know. The playlist was slapping, and
You can't remember the teacher.
I'll ask Anthony.
What day of the week was it?
It had to be. I don't know. She was like taller, brunette. Maybe not like Dana or
Dara. Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Playlist
Yes.
slapping.
Yeah.
Very, very good. But it's
Dara's amazing.
It's always interesting. Ralph had a Christmas playlist on Christmas Eve,
That's
and
so
it was
fun.
wild. I was like, he sent me it before. He was like, "It's going to be
Prepare
all
yourself.
crazy Christmas stuff," and I was like, "I wonder what this is going to be." And then it was just real good. Now, let me ask you this: I'm a fan of, I'm not really a fan of, I can't say I'm not a fan. I'm just more of a fan of hot yoga.
Oh, yeah.
Like, do you have a preference? Do you get the same thing out of regular yoga?
Just like I believe there's a yoga studio for everyone and I'm not going to love them all.
Yeah.
I am a hot junkie
Okay.
through and through. So like I'll take classes that are warm, but if the studio's not at least warm, it's just not.
I just want to be
just not
pulling
me.
sweat.
Yeah.
I feel like if I don't there,
And that's just how I was introduced to it. And
Yeah.
it's just, it helps me like feel like I'm getting the full benefits of the experience.
1,000,000%.
But that's nothing against people that, cause there's plenty of people that don't like hot yoga. And
Absolutely.
people that surprise me, like people that I'll expect to be like a heat junkie. They're like, oh no, I prefer, not hot. And I'm like, what? And then it's like when someone tells me they like white wine over red wine, I'm like, I'm not trying to judge you, but really white?
Yeah, it's interesting. But it's true. There's a class for everyone. I enjoy it though. What are your goals?
That's a great question. So so on top of the way that I do this full time, actually like 40 plus hours a week is not by teaching a million classes, because I've tried to do that. You're going to run yourself ragged. And for me, at least, like I couldn't show up 100% for all those classes. So I'm so grateful to say that, in 2022, the end of 2022, I was asked to be a master trainer for Yoga 6 corporate. So also two totally different, yes, it's the same brand, but like two totally different employers, different bosses, different teams. There's 9 of us scattered across the country, and we facilitate.
Only 9.
Yeah, there's 9 of us.
Congrats.
Thank you.
That's
and
awesome.
They're all amazing. They're so cool. We have a dream team for sure. And we facilitate. So basically what our job is to teach yoga teachers how to teach the Yoga 6 methodology. And we help to support opening new studios across the country. Once studios are opened, like we're always there as a resource to support teachers and lead teachers across the country. And then we also facilitate a 300-hour teacher training. So that's what I got to do, co-facilitate. I was supposed to shadow, and then it ended up being, nope, you want to step in? And I was like, really? Okay, let's do it.
You're pumped about it?
I don't remember the 8 limbs, but let's go.
And is that just starting, right?
No, that we actually, so the 300-hour that I was co-facilitating finished in December.
Oh, okay.
The 200-hour that's in person at Yoga 6 South Hills starts this Friday.
Yeah,
oh my
yeah.
God. So that'll be the 12th, January 12th.
Yeah. How
So-
many people usually are?
We have 14 this time. We had 16 last
14.
time. Yeah, so great number.
Yeah.
We cap it at 20. I feel like 20 would be little overbearing. So I love, like, 14 is great.
Yeah.
But even if, just like a yoga class, like if 8 people show up or if 30 people show up, like I'm going to teach the best fucking class that I can. So
Yeah.
I'm excited that we have 14, but mostly more than like the actual number, I'm happy it's even, so that for groups we can do even numbers. But anyways, so that, all that to say, my goals now, I feel like that's really like catapulted me into, like, it's been a springboard for me into really having the confidence in myself that, like, oh, I can do this and I belong here and I'm supposed to be doing this. And not only do I love it, but like I'm good at it. And as much as I love to teach yoga, where I actually feel like my passion sits and where I actually shine is training yoga teachers.
Yeah.
That's like really, if we're like honing in, that's my jam. That's what lights me up. And that's where I think like I excel more than just teaching a yoga class.
Yeah. More teaching how to teach teachers.
Yeah,
to
like
communicate it.
empowering teachers to use their own voice to change lives. Like that just, I can't. It gives
That's
me,
awesome.
It makes me so happy. So my goal from the beginning, I said this before, but like I said I wanted to dance because I wanted it to cultivate. I wanted to be able to travel the world, see the world, and dance would be the means to do that. And so since the beginning, I've kind of always had in the back of my mind hosting retreats. And to make a long story short, a teacher that I used to take from at Amazing Yoga, her name's Catherine Gignac. She's incredible. I used to take her class in college, and then she stopped teaching there. Then she stopped teaching regular classes in Pittsburgh altogether. I hadn't seen her in almost a decade, and she showed up to Yoga 6 a few years ago, and I saw her name on the roster and I was like, oh my God, Catherine's taking my class. Like, what? And I had to like humble I'm like, ego, shut up. Just do what you do. This is not about you. This is about Catherine enjoying a yoga class. So she walks in and I like was trying to calm myself down. And of course, like, this is why I don't consider myself a hippie, because I immediately just like word vomit was like, hi, did you used to teach an Amazing Yoga? And she was just like, she was just like, yes, I used to teach an Amazing Yoga. And like, she just wants to go to any yoga studio and not be known.
Yeah.
And I was like, I used to take your class. I loved you so much. And blah, blah, blah. And she's like, thanks. And I could just sense, like, she was being very polite, but I could just sense that she was like, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just it's Saturday morning. Leave me alone. So I taught the class. And then afterwards she came up to me and she was like almost on the verge of tears. And she was like, can I just give you a hug? And I was like, what? And she was like, I haven't enjoyed yoga in like that in so long.
Wow.
And
what a compliment.
I know. I was just like a puddle on the floor. I was like, what? Like, I'm your fangirl. I'm like the leader of your fangirl club, even though I'm not. My friend Brandon probably is. But anyways, so I was finishing my 300-hour training when this happened. And the facilitator of that training said, you know, we've given you everything that we can. So your next step, your next job is to find your next teacher. And I had always followed Catherine on Instagram, but I don't know, I guess the universe didn't want me to see this until I saw it. And I realized that she hosts retreats. And I was like, what? So I got on Instagram and sent her another reason why I'm not a hippie, a message so long on Instagram that I had to like send it in 2 messages because it was like, this message is too long. And it basically was just like, this is divine. Like, I haven't seen you in almost a decade. And now like my goal, my passion project that I did for my 300-hour training was creating retreats. So, her and I met. She's just, I can't say it enough. She's so incredible and so giving and gracious and just humble. And she was like, she didn't know me from Adam, right? Like I was just some random girl that used to love her yoga classes.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'll show you everything. I'll show you my books. I don't need to hide anything. I don't feel like we're competing. Like, you do you, girl. And like, I will support you and answer any questions you have.
Hell
and I was
yeah,
like,
that's
what?
awesome.
So she's like, first step, have you been on any yoga retreats? And I was like, no. And she's like, okay, well, number one, start going on yoga retreats. So I was like, all right, I'll go on yours. So my friend Nikki and I went to Iceland in September with her.
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's where it was.
So she does them in Tulum, Iceland. There's going to be more in Europe down the road. And then we met a few months ago and she's like, I know you're going to host retreats and I know that you want my help. So like, do you want to collaborate? And I was like, yes. So her company is called The Retreat. And the reason why is because there's yoga in the beginning, but like, it's not a yoga retreat. It's an experience, like an adventure. Like it's group travel that has yoga in the mornings if you want to take it. So yeah, so she was like, I want to expand the retreat. And I want to expand by doing more retreats and more local retreats. So we are hosting a retreat together. We're collaborating with our friend Nicole. We have one in May and one in August. They're going to be in Ohio, in Dover, Ohio, which is like an hour away from Pittsburgh, in the Dwell Box house. Have you seen that on Instagram?
No.
It's super cool. So just look up Dwell Box.
Yeah, I'll post a picture people could see in this video.
It's sick. It's so sick. And if you want to get on the wait list for, honestly, like it's going to be a registration.
Your first thing's already booked up?
Well, no, so wait list being like people that are interested.
For whenever it's going to be open.
So registration will open early this year. I don't want to give any dates, but
how long is this retreat?
It's just Friday to Sunday. So just a weekend retreat. And then, actually in a few weeks, I'm going to Tulum with her on one of her retreats. I'm not collaborating.
Shit.
I'm going to be
are you pumped about that?
So excited. Oh my gosh.
Because the yogi that I knew before this, she was a yogi long ago that I knew. She went on a retreat to Tulum and talked to me about it back then. This is like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's the place, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I kind of like Iceland. Like I'm just kind of following Catherine. Like it was never like on my list, but I'm so excited.
What's Matty Mitch think about all this? Is he a yoga guy?
No, he
won't do yoga.
He used to do yoga. He used to take my classes before we got married, and
just to be nice.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Because now he hasn't taken my class in probably 2 years. And I just asked him recently, I was like, come on, like, why don't you come take class? Like, even if it's not my class, let's go take a class together. And he finally admitted, he's like, it just gives me more anxiety than like calms me down. And I'm like, that's because you're in that dancer headspace. You're trying to perform.
That's funny.
But yeah, so my big goal is, Catherine is also supporting and challenging me to host my own retreat in Tulum in 2025 because we've got the spot, and she's like, I can literally show you exactly how to do everything. So you've got a baseline.
It's going to be like season 3 of White Lotus.
Want. Yeah.
That's super cool though. So your goal whenever you were a kid was travel the world by being a dancer.
Yes.
And now your goal is going to be traveling the world.
I want to see the world
by
and
teaching people yoga.
Make money doing it by creating, like I want it to be my job is what I should say.
Yeah. I feel like people don't say it enough where it's like, yeah, I just want to do what I want to do. But it's like, realistically, you want to be able to get paid. I want to be able to pay my bills for doing this podcast.
And like,
you want to be able to pay your bills by doing yoga.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. That's why it's important for people to, patronize people that are working hard to do things.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then it builds community, and it's like,
it builds a community. It's the best thing ever.
Above all, yeah.
You'd rather have 100 devoted people than 1,000 people you just know.
Exactly.
I don't know if that makes sense. I butcher so many quotes on here. It's insane. But I think that I think that you have a pretty wild story. I think that it's definitely not what I expected from me. Because anytime I have people over here, I'm like, what the hell is this person going to be like?
Yeah.
And I start to make assumptions. I'm like, maybe she did this. Maybe she did this. Maybe she was yoga like that. But it's cool to see. I try to not research people too heavily because I kind of want to just
learn as
I don't have notes on me. I don't have notes for anyone that I talk to. I just I'll scroll through Instagram. I'll see some things that I'm interested in. I knew you were a dancer, but I didn't look too far into it just because I was curious on how this kind of all came to be. I believe that I read I think it was Ralph. Ralph said that you're like the godmother of yoga nowadays. And I see everyone posting about you.
Like it just lights me up. Like I wish that I could find the words for it. I'm just so honored to be able to do this work and I look at more people like from my parents' generation and like my parents, who do jobs because it's what they're supposed to do to make money. Yeah. And I can't like
tale as old as time.
I can't.
That's literally my mother, corporate life, worked at PNC her whole life. And it's like, she sees what I do every week. And whenever I first started this, she was so like, what is a podcast? All that. And now you're about to be like 268 of people that I had on here.
That's amazing.
And every fucking person is like, I just jumped. I just did it. And it like gives me chills. I've cried on here multiple times.
Yeah.
You know, but it's like you said, our parents, how old are you?
29.
Okay, so I'm 33. Our parents' generation, probably very similar. It just wasn't like that.
Yeah.
It was just like, go get a job, get married, have kids, and fucking die.
Provide. Yeah. And it's
like, I'm trying to enjoy
have
my
purpose.
life.
Yeah,
I'm just
exactly.
trying to enjoy my life.
And
I
if
want to
I
wake
can,
up.
it's like what you said too. Like if we can sustain our lives and make money doing something that fuels us. Like
imagine how much happier everyone would be.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean?
That's why, like, anytime someone, gives me kudos on being the yoga teacher that I am, it's like, I don't even try. That's why, like, I feel like, anyone that really excels at what they do, and like, not just on a surface level, but when you're around them, you just like can feel the
you're
vibe
not a
and
poser.
the energy. Yeah, it's like
you're not a poser. You're living
love this. Yes, it's like you can't. It's undeniable.
Undeniable. Fantastic. I think that the conversation we had about your life, fantastic. Do you think that there's anything I missed? Are you ready to go to the ending segment that I do with everyone? Think there's anything I missed with yoga? I was going through.
No, I think
it was thorough.
Yeah, I think we touched on everything.
It was thorough. It was thorough. Okay, ending segment that I do with everyone is an ending segment called Desert Island Questions.
Fun.
Okay. So Desert Island Questions, whenever I give each guest 3 categories to take with them on a desert island and use until they starve to death and die. First category, 3 movies. So you get a little TV with like an integrated DVD player, and you only get 3 DVDs for the rest of your life. What are they?
Okay, the first one is When Harry Met Sally.
Okay.
I love that movie. Then I know that this is the Waterboy. I couldn't decide which Adam Sandler movie, but probably Waterboy.
Okay.
And 3, I'm going to take a second to think on this one.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Like that?
What's a go-to? Oh my God, The Holiday.
Oh, Jack Black?
Yes.
So good.
In a serious role.
I didn't watch that this year. And I should have. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Are you a reader?
Not really.
Okay.
I like audiobooks.
Whoa.
Podcasts.
Okay. If you could give me 3 podcasts or audiobooks that you really love.
Okay. So my weekly podcast is Mystic Michaela, Know Your Aura. She is an aura reader, but she's like not so woo-woo, and her husband's on the podcast, and they're very like digestible and relatable, and she's just
good dynamic.
Super cool. Yeah. Whenever you told me what episode is this going to be?
268.
268. So I have her angel number book, so I'm going to look up what 268 means.
Yeah.
I love her. So definitely that podcast. The Model Health podcast with Steve, what's his name? Sean Stevenson.
Okay.
And
what was that book that you said that was like your Bible?
And The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukov. Yeah.
I'm going to have to look that up.
It's incredible. It's about the 6 sensory human beings. So obviously we have 5 senses, and it talks all about that 6th sense of like the inklings of
seeing dead people.
Yeah, I know, right? No, that would be terrifying. I have, we don't have to get into that.
You got a ghost story?
I do have a ghost story. Well, so
please, if you got time.
Spirit story. Yeah, I do. So my grandfather, my mom's dad, passed away Christmas of 2015, I want to say.
Okay.
And we waited to have, it was 2015. So instead of having a funeral, we waited to have a memorial for him the summer of 2016. And for whatever reason, I wasn't able to leave Pittsburgh to go. And I felt really bad about it. I was just starting to date Matt. I was diving into not dancing and transitioning my whole life, which you guys all heard about. And I was laying in Matt's bed one morning, and I was like, it was early, but like the sun was up, so it was bright enough. And I was like in and out of sleep. And I looked over, and on the side of his bed, my grandpa was standing there. And my grandpa died like a very frail man, but he was standing there like how I remember him from when I was a kid. Like he was like
100%.
fat with a big mustache.
No
and I like couldn't move, but I was like, that's Papa. And so I like tried to say something or move, and like I couldn't.
Just like
So I
sleep paralysis?
I don't know. I don't even know if it was just utter shock or if like I didn't want to move and then have him be gone. So I stuck my hand out, and he grabbed my hand and he turned me toward Matt. And I like took that as like a message from him that like, it's okay that you can't be there and like be with Matt. Like he's
No fucking way.
Yeah.
That's
so
sick.
that's not the sixth sense that Gary Zukov is necessary. Maybe it is.
Yeah.
Maybe, that's part of it.
Who knows?
But
that's a good story.
Yeah.
That's a good story.
That's the only ghost story I have, but I stick to it. I just recently over Christmas was watching old family home videos, and there was a video of like for a long time, and I'm just sitting on his lap, and I was under one, and and I'm just watching that video, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I didn't tell my family because I told them years ago, and I don't want to get back into it, but I was like, that was the dude standing in Matt's fucking room.
Jeez.
Like that man right there.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay. Third category, 3 CDs.
Oh my God. So Blink-182, the album with I Miss You.
Good.
This is really funny, but
Is that Damn It, I believe? Maybe?
I think so.
Yeah.
I can like see it, the blue and pink. Hillary Duff, Metamorphosis.
Oh, we're fans. Me and my wife just listened not long ago.
I love Hillary Duff so much.
Yeah, I mean, she like came out unscathed, living the dream. Looks
Seriously.
fantastic.
Pregnant again?
Is she pregnant again?
Yes.
Good for Hillary.
For baby
Come
4,
on.
I want to say.
Yeah.
3 or 4. 4, I think.
Yeah,
But
she's out
anyways,
there
I
killing it.
love her. I know. I just adore her. And my last CD.
Fun fact, first time I ever held a girl's hand, Lizzie McGuire movie.
Yes.
Down at the waterfront movie theater. Yep.
I'm so happy that you know Metamorphosis.
Yeah.
CD. God, I'm trying to like think back to my car in high school.
I know. That's where it goes back into my mind. CD book.
Yeah. One that keeps coming to mind, but it's just,
That's all right.
God, all right. Well, I'm just going to say it because it's the only thing that's coming to mind. We have Blink-182, we have Hillary Duff, and now we have Britney Spears, and it's the
Come
CD.
on. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I know. I just feel like I'm like, it's so typical. I love Britney Spears. I still love Britney Spears, but it's the CD that was like beige with like the Hawaiian flower on
Yeah,
it.
I think Antoinette has it in her car. Swear to God.
Yes. So those are my 3 CDs.
That's good though. Those are good answers. I hope Britney Spears is doing wonderful right now. What is the best concert you've ever been to?
Best concert. Either Greta Van Fleet.
Oh, it's DJE?
Yes. Years ago, like when they
ripped.
were still tiny.
Like 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
Insane.
It was insane. I have videos on my
Insane.
phone. It's the best. I ask almost everyone this question. That's definitely the best.
Yes, it was insane. I'm so happy that you agree and that you were there.
Yeah.
And I remember buying tickets for like $200 or something. And we were like, we don't care. The next time they come, they're going to be at Heinz Field. So
wild.
and that was before Stage AE, I want to say, like actually had separate seats for like lawn and pit.
Yeah, it was
and
all
so we
one
were just
together.
up front. Like,
yeah, because it was a while back.
yeah, this was probably 2017
Yeah.
or maybe 18. Do I get to pick 3?
Yeah, you can.
You're like, sure, you can.
You can.
Another one is Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Never seen them live.
Oh my gosh, I've
Probably
seen them multiple
insane.
times. The one I'm talking about was at Austin City Limits my senior year of high school.
Wow.
They closed out Sunday night. That was incredible.
Jeez.
And then last but not least, I'm not going to say how I feel about this person, but a Bass Nectar show, the very first EDM show that I ever went to in 2010 on
Was it
Halloween.
here?
No, it was in Dallas.
Oh, I got one from here, I think in 2010 in April.
Also Bass Nectar?
It's Stage A, and it was the wild.
See? Yeah, so it's probably, well, actually, I know that it wasn't the same set because, again, like I don't want to say too much about Bass Nectar, but I will say that regardless of
shame.
his personal life, I love his art.
I know, it's terrible. It's like listening to Brand New. It's like, God damn it.
Like,
but what can you do?
Yeah, but I respect his art, and I don't have any comments on him as a human being.
Yeah, fuck Bass Nectar. Anyway, third to last question is the death row meal. So you get an appetizer, a main course, and a dessert. What would they be?
Okay, so this is dead serious. Appetizer is arancini from Matt.
Streets?
Yes.
Yep.
Main course is...
He said you were one of the OGs there.
Oh, yeah.
How did you guys get turned on the streets?
We used to live up 18th.
Okay.
And so when they opened, exactly. Yeah, we were patrons. We'd go there Sunday, hungover, and play bingo with Lauren. Not Hallmark bingo.
Yeah.
With Lifetime bingo.
Lifetime, that's
yes.
it, yeah.
Main course, some sort of like so flavorful and so colorful, but like steak cooked perfectly with like other flavors, like, and not mashed potatoes, like broccolini and like some sort of red something, like some pickled onions.
Those are good.
Horseradish sauce.
Yeah. It's a good answer.
Perfectly. And dessert I get? Dessert creme brulee.
Oh, that's a good one too.
Those are good questions.
I ask everyone these. Second to last question, you get ready to go on. You're getting ready to go to your retreat in Dover, Ohio. You go to a gas station, you get a snack. What is your choice?
So guilty pleasure are those like Frito...
the spiral ones?
Yeah, they're like so
chili
hard.
cheese?
Yes,
Yeah.
I love those. But like, if I'm going to my retreat, I'm probably not going to get those. Probably going to get those like coming home from like a music festival.
That's all right.
But I mean, that's honestly, that's what I get. If I'm, otherwise it's just like, a core water. Honestly, I love a core water, but my go-to at a gas station, like, there's not
chili
much to choose
cheese
from.
Cheetos.
I love how hard they
Fritos.
are. Yeah.
Okay.
They're
that's
so
good.
hard.
Yeah. I mean, you can't beat a walking taco.
Yeah.
Okay. Second to last question. The last question. If you could have a conversation with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why?
I would like to have a conversation with, I've said this before, and I'm trying to think if I can think of anyone else, but she keeps coming to mind. So I would love to have a conversation with Martha Graham, who is one of the pioneers of the modern dance world.
Martha Graham.
Yeah.
She's still alive?
No.
Okay.
And she was a head case, man. She was crazy.
Okay.
Just like all those artists were back in the, 50s and 60s and 70s.
Oh, yeah.
So
She did a lot of shit, though?
yeah, she has like a whole school under her name and like a whole technique, like a whole modality or methodology rather, called the Graham technique. I don't like it. I was never good at it. I don't like how it feels. I don't even like really watching it. Like I respect the hell out of it, but I don't find joy in it. Like I'm not like, oh, that's so beautiful and amazing. But I would love to talk to her.
Yeah, to talk to someone at that
be
level.
like, what's going on?
That's a good answer. You'd be surprised by the answers that I get with what people say. Okay, the last thing that I do with everyone, I bought this thing. This is an Instagram ad that I fell with. Yeah, it was clickbait. So basically, this guy invented these cards. I guess this is a way for someone who's not an interviewer like myself to unpack your family. So there are questions that say early life, late life, or there's early life, midlife, and later life and reflection. So what would you like? Early, mid, or later?
Mid.
Okay, pick from the middle.
With a question mark?
Pick from the middle and just read the card.
This is like from the podcast. Hang on. What attracted you to your spouse?
Oh my goodness.
That's a really
you've heard
good
so
one.
much about Matty Mitch. How
Yeah.
did you meet him?
So this girl I went to high school with, who I was never really friends with in high school and I'm not really friends with now, but we always had mutual friends. There was a blimp in time where we were friends, and she lived in New York City and I lived in Pittsburgh. And anytime I would go to New York for dance stuff, I would stay with her. And so Matt left Mitchell's and went to New York with his 2 buddies, and they stayed with this girl who went to Penn State with one of his friends. And my friend from high school, Courtney Christine, she was roommates with that girl from Penn State. And so they literally spent the weekend with this girl that I knew. And she called me like a week later speaking of Facebook, I got a friend request from Matty Mitch, and his profile picture was of him and his sister on her wedding day. And so I remember getting it and being like, oh, this dude's married, but whatever, like accept. And I thought Mallory was his wife. But so Courtney calls me and she's like, what are you doing this weekend? I was like, I have a show. My family's in town. Super busy. Why? What's up? She's like, well, I'm on the train. I'm coming to Pittsburgh. And I was like, I have a show this weekend. Like, I can't have a college weekend, like, drinking with you. And she's like, no, it's fine. Like, I'll go to your show, whatever. So she came into town, didn't tell me any of her plans. And we went to Carmela's in Southside with my family, my parents, after my show. And she was like, hey, I actually met these guys last weekend in New York, and they live like right up the street. So that's house on 18th, which I ended up living at.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah. And I was like, no, oh God, I hate boys. I had just broken up with, or he had broken up with me, my college boyfriend, for like the 3rd or 4th time. And I was like, no, Courtney, I'm over boys. I hate them. Like, please don't make me do this. And I met him.
What year was that?
2016.
Hell yeah.
It was in February. Yeah.
Almost 8 years.
Yeah. And it was like at first, and I mean, I was immediately attracted to him. Yes, of course, the way that he looks, but not the way that he looks. No, of course, the way that he looks, but like his like energy, I was like immediately drawn to. But then I even ended up saying to him a few months later, like, I'm so sorry for leading you on. I'm moving to New York City. Like, I'm still in love with my ex. And he was like, no worries. Like, best of luck with your dance career. If you're ever in Pittsburgh, you know where to find me. And that was like the best response, because I was like, oh.
You know what they say? If you love someone, set them free. Mm-hmm. They're going to come back.
Yeah. So what attracted me to him, a lot of things, and I actually said this in our vows when we got married, but my mom used to always say, like, you need to find a man. And I would always be like, what does that even mean? Like, what do you mean? And when I met Matt, I was like, Mom, I found a man. Like, he is such I am so independent, and I'm so myself, and I am unapologetic. And he allows me to be all of those things, but he's also he is so protective without being like constrictive.
Yeah, he's there for when you need it.
Yeah, and he's a man. Like, he fixes all the things, even when he like curses the house for having to fix all the things.
Yeah.
And I can always no matter what, I can count on him. Like, he's my man. So that's what attracted him to me, and what still does.
Perfect. I think that this is better than I could have ever hoped.
Yay, me too. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Take a second and promote all your stuff, where people could find you,
cool.
Where people could check out your classes.
So Instagram, Monty Fresh, MONTI Fresh. Like we kind of mentioned, my friend May and I started a podcast. So on Instagram, The Yoga Chat. Really excited about that. If you have ever taken a yoga class, then you're invited to be a guest on the show. So the intention is to share the story behind people's yoga journeys in an effort to get more people, like we were talking about Ralph, right? Like people that you wouldn't expect to find solace within the practice and receive all the benefits from it. So that's that. And then you can catch me at Yoga Flow Shady Side on Thursday nights at 6 p.m. That's church. That's I don't want to play favorites, but that's definitely my favorite class. It's been my class. It's the first class I ever got after teacher training. So it's very near and dear to my heart. Friday mornings, Yoga Flow South Hills at 9 a.m. And then Yoga 6 South Hills always changes. So check the app. But if you're listening to this currently, like after it airs, Monday, 9 a.m. hot, 10:30 slow flow. Tuesdays, 9 a.m. sculpt. Wednesdays, 6 a.m. power. Just started diving into that and I actually love it. And then Thursdays, 7:30 a.m. sculpt.
So you got a full schedule.
Yes.
All the time. I'm going to post something up for the video so people could just see what your
There it
calendar
is.
with everything. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking some time to talk to me. Everyone else that's listening, appreciate all the yins. Thank you as usual. Each and every week we're back with another great guest doing great things. Talk to yins all next week. Call you right back.
Telephone.
I'll call you right back. Call you right back.
Telephone.
I'll call you right back podcast.